So hey, what's up guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. So in this video we are going to see what if Goku landed in Westeros and challenged the Night King. So this will be movie, and if you want more movies like this, then please leave a like, share and subscribe. Also don't forget to suggest me some more ideas for the next video, and I will be not, and don't worry, I will be not hosting the whole video, and you can skip the intro always. And let's get in the video.
The night over Dragonstone had teeth. Wind gnawed at the cliffs, dragging salt spray up into the black sky like ghost breath. Waves smashed themselves into the rocks below with a violence that never tired, as if the sea was trying, every single hour, to tear the island away from the world and swallow it whole. On the highest terrace of the ancient fortress, the Dragon Queen watched the horizon. Daenerys stood with her cloak pinned tight against the cold, silver hair pulled back, chin lifted like a blade. The torches behind her hissed and guttered in the wind. At her side, her hand, Tyrion Lannister, kept his hands tucked into his sleeves and his eyes open, always open, like sleep was a luxury he no longer trusted. Below, in the courtyards and halls, soldiers rested uneasily. You could feel it in the way footsteps were shorter, in the way voices stayed low. War had become a constant thing, like weather. And in the north, the other storm was coming. Daenerys didn't look away from the sea. "You're thinking of him," Tyrion said quietly. She didn't need to ask who. "I'm thinking of the living," she answered. "All of them." Tyrion followed her gaze. Far out across the water. The world was a smear of darkness. The living rarely appreciate being thought about. It makes them nervous. Daenerys's lips tightened. They should be nervous. A.G. Ust slammed into the terrace so hard the torches bent sideways. Somewhere in the castle, a shutter banged. For a moment, Dragonstone sounded like it was groaning in its bones. Then the sky changed. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't lightning. It was light, bright, falling, wrong. A star tore across the clouds, leaving a tail of gold-white fire. It cut the night open like a sword slash, so bright it painted Daenerys's face and Tyrion's wide eyes in harsh, shifting color. The star didn't fade. It grew. It grew fast. The air began to shake. Not gently, violently. A deep rumble traveled through stone and mortar. The kind of sound that usually came from dragon wings. Guards shouted below. Doors opened. People ran into courtyards and craned their necks upward. Daenerys's breath caught. Her instinct, pure and immediate, was that this was an attack. But no fleet could do this. No trebuchet could throw fire through the sky. The falling light screamed. It struck the cliffs beneath dragons. Tone with a force that didn't belong in the world. The impact was a soundless flash that turned night into day for a heartbeat. A wave of heat slapped the terrace. Dust and fragments of rock burst upward, then rained down like ash. The ground trembled so hard Tyrion's knees buckled. Daenerys grabbed the stone railing, knuckles white, eyes narrowed against the glare. And then the glare faded. The night returned. But Dragonstone was no longer the same. From the edge of the cliffside below the fortress, smoke rose in a thick column. Pieces of shattered rock lay scattered across the courtyard's far side. As if the island had been bitten. Daenerys stepped forward. "Your Grace," a guard called, voice tight. It came down near the eastern cliffs. "I saw," Daenerys cut in. She was already moving. Tyrion hurried after her, cloak flapping like a torn banner. If that was an assassin, they've become remarkably creative. Daenerys didn't answer. Her boots struck the stone steps with purpose. The Unsullied formed a spear point behind her, silent and disciplined. Dothraki swarmed the courtyard edges like restless wolves, eyes glittering with the thrill of something new to kill. The Y reached the cliff path, a jagged route carved into the island's side, leading toward the impact site. Heat still lingered in the air, unnatural and sharp. As they descended, Daenerys felt it, not fear, exactly, but the prickle of power. A sense that something had arrived, something that didn't belong to Westeros. Halfway down, the wind shifted and carried an odd scent. Not smoke, not salt, something like burned metal. Lightning caught in stone. They turned a bend. The cliff had been cratered. A wide bowl had been gouged into rock, its edges scorched smooth. Steam curled from the fresh fractures. The stones nearest the center glowed faintly, as if remembering the heat. And in the crater's heart lay a figure. A man. He was face down, half buried in rubble, clothing torn, skin scraped. Black hair spiked wildly as if it refused to lie flat even after falling from the sky. One arm twitched. Daenerys stopped at the crater's edge. The Dothraki murmured, some making protective gestures. The Unsullied lifted spears. Tyrion stared, mouth slightly open. "Well," he said, voice strained, "that's new." The man coughed. Rock dust puffed from the ground. He pushed himself up slowly. Like someone climbing out of a bad dream. Daenerys expected a monster. Instead, he rose on hands and knees and blinked like someone waking in a tavern after drinking too much. He looked young. Not boyish, but not old. Broad-shouldered, muscular, the kind of strength you didn't get from swinging a sword in training yards, you got it from something else entirely. His face was scratched, dirty, but not cruel. His eyes, when they lifted, were dark and alert. He looked around at the ring of armed strangers. And then he smiled. It was an absurd thing to do. His smile wasn't mocking. It wasn't arrogant. It was bright. Like he was relieved to see people at all. "Ah," he said, voice rough from coughing. He sat back on his heels, rubbing the back of his head. "Hi." Silence. An Unsullied stepped forward, spear angled. "Stay down," Grey Worm commanded. The stranger tilted his head, trying to understand the language. Not my place." He pointed to himself. "I'm Goku." Daenerys watched him carefully. He didn't flinch at the spears. He didn't scan for exits like a cornered assassin. He wasn't afraid. That made him either the greatest fool alive. Or something far worse. Tyrion cleared his throat. "Goku," he repeated, tasting the name like it might cut him. "You're very far from anywhere named like that." Goku blinked, then laughed lightly, as if the situation was strange but not threatening. "Yeah, I kinda noticed." He looked at the crater walls, then up at the fortress above. "This place is big and pointy." Daenerys took a step forward. Her voice carried authority. "Who sent you?" Goku turned toward her. His smile softened. He bowed awkwardly, not a kneel, not a proper court bow, but a respectful dip of the head. "No one sent me. I was traveling. Then something pulled me." He made a vague swirling gesture with his hand, like he was trying to describe a storm in the air. "Next thing I know, boom." His eyes flicked to her dragons in the distance. Because they were there. At the sound and flash, Drogon had come. The great black dragon perched on a ridge above the crater, wings half unfurled. Moonlight slid across his scales like oil. His eyes were molten. His nostrils flared as he tasted the air, and the low rumble in his chest was the sound of a living furnace. The Dothraki backed away instinctively. The Unsullied held their line, but Daenerys saw the tension in their shoulders. Even the brave feared dragons. They were meant to be feared. Goku looked up at Drogon and grinned wider. "Whoa," he breathed, like a child seeing a mountain move. "He's huge." Drogon's throat vibrated, warning. Smoke curled from his mouth. Daenerys lifted a hand slowly, not for Drogon, but for her men. "Hold." Then she spoke without taking her eyes from the dragon. "Dracarys." Drogon did not breathe fire. He didn't move closer. But he didn't flee either. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, head lowering, nostrils flaring again. Studying. Testing. Goku, still sitting in the crater, raised his hands, palms open, harmless. "Hey," he said softly, not even looking away. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt anyone." Tyrion made a small, helpless gesture. He's attempting diplomacy with a creature that eats diplomacy. Goku stood. In one motion, smooth despite his injuries. He brushed dust from his torn orange and blue clothes. The fabric was strange, unlike any Westerosi cut. Like a fighter's uniform from another world. He took a careful step toward Drogon. Grey Worm snapped, "Stop." But Goku was already moving, and Daenerys realized something at once. He wasn't walking like a man approaching death. He was walking like someone approaching a challenge, or a friend. Drogon's wings flexed. The ridge shook under his weight. Goku stopped. Ed at the edge of the crater and looked up, squinting. "You're strong," he said, more to himself than anyone. "But you're not evil." Daenerys felt something twist in her chest. Not evil. People didn't say that about dragons. People said dragons were weapons. They said dragons were terror. They said dragons were the right of kings and queens. But this stranger looked at Drogon like he was looking at a person. Drogon lowered his head further. His breath rolled down, hot enough to make the air ripple. Goku's hair fluttered from the force. The dragon inhaled. The smell of fire thickened. Tyrion whispered urgently, "Your Grace." Daenerys didn't move, because she saw Goku's eyes. Not fear, not defiance, just calm. Drogon exhaled. A blast of smoke, not flame, washed over Goku, staining him darker with soot. The dragon's eyes narrowed, as if deciding something. Goku coughed once, waved smoke away, and laughed. "Okay," he said, still smiling, "you're dramatic." A sound like a growl, but not hostile, rolled from Drogon's chest. And then, unthinkably, the dragon's head shifted slightly to the side. Not bowing, not submitting, but accepting. Daenerys felt the courtyard behind her loosen as if everyone had been holding their breath for the same moment. Tyrion spoke first, voice low with disbelief. "Either we've found the first man in history to insult a dragon and survive, or we're all about to die." Goku turned back toward them. His smile faltered when he saw all the weapons aimed at him. "Oh," he said, realizing. "Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." He lifted his hands again. "I'm not your enemy. I'm just lost." Daenerys stepped down into the crater, boots crunching over shattered rock. She stood a few paces from him, close enough to see the exhaustion in his posture. He was hiding pain, not perfectly, but he was trying. Her eyes narrowed. "Lost men don't fall from the sky." Goku shrugged sheepishly. "I mean, sometimes they do." A few of the Dothraki laughed nervously, unsure if they were allowed. Daenerys studied him. "What are you?" He looked genuinely confused by the question. "I'm me." Then he tapped his chest. "I'm a Saiyan. From another place." He searched for the word. "Another world." Tyrion's eyebrows climbed. "Another world," he repeated carefully. "That sounds inconvenient." Goku nodded as if Tyrion had made a brilliant observation. "Yeah." Daenerys turned slightly, giving Tyrion a glance. "Another world." The priests and magisters would call him a sign. The lords would call him a weapon. Cersei would call him a threat to be chained. But Daenerys didn't care what they would call him. She cared what he would do. She looked back to Goku. "If you're lost, why not leave the way you came?" Goku scratched his cheek, leaving a streak of soot. "I can't feel it anymore. Whatever pulled me, it's gone." That was the first truly alarming thing he said. Not the skyfall. Not the dragon. Something powerful enough to watch a warrior from another world and then vanish like a thief in the night. Daenerys's voice tightened. "What were you doing before you came here?" Goku's eyes brightened again, like the question unlocked something familiar. "Training," he said immediately. "I was supposed to meet a really strong guy. Well, not a guy, more like." He waved his hand, lost in his own thought. "Anyway, I was getting ready for a fight." Tyrion frowned. "You sound as if fighting is a hobby." Goku looked at him with complete honesty. "It kinda is." Daenerys waited. And now, Goku's gaze drifted past them, beyond the crater. As if he could see through stone and miles. His expression shifted. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. A warrior's instinct. "I don't know," he admitted. "But something here feels wrong." He tilted his head, listening to a sound no one else could hear. "Not like bad people. Like the world is sick." Daenerys felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. She'd heard hat kind of language before, from priests speaking of darkness, from red women staring into flames and whispering of cold beyond the wall. Tyrion's voice became careful. "If you've come with warnings, you may find we're drowning in them." Goku looked at Daenerys. "Are people in trouble?" Daenerys held his gaze. "Yes. Big trouble. Yes." Goku nodded once, simple. "Then I'll help." It was said like a fact. Not a bargain. Not a vow sworn on gods or blood. Not a plea for reward. Just, "I will." Daenerys had met men who promised her the world. This one promised her help the way a person offered water to someone thirsty. Grey Worm stepped closer, still wary. "Words are easy." Goku looked toward Grey Worm and then at the unsullied line. He seemed to understand, even without understanding. He bowed his head slightly. "You're right," he said. "I can show you." He turned, glanced up at Drogon again, then back to Daenerys. "But, can we do it somewhere safer? I don't want to break your home." Tyrion barked a short laugh. Half disbelief, half relief. That might be the first time anyone has worried about not breaking Dragonstone. Daenerys studied him. He was powerful, she could feel it. Like standing near a storm that hadn't decided whether to rain or kill. But his eyes were clear. And for the first time in a long time, Daenerys felt something rare. Not hope, not certainty, but the possibility of a weapon that didn't want to be won. She turned and started back up the cliff path. Bring him, she ordered. Grey Worm hesitated. Daenerys didn't. And Goku, still dusty, still wounded, still smiling, followed as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Above them, Drogon spread his wings. Not as a threat, as a shadow. As if, for reasons the dragon didn't fully understand, he had decided to watch this strange sky man a little longer. As they climbed, a cold wind swept across Dragonstone again, sharp, biting, impatient. Far to the north, beyond seas and kingdoms and walls, winter moved like a living thing. And somewhere in that darkness, something ancient waited, silent, patient, and certain that all warmth would end. Goku stepped onto the terrace at last, looked out at the Black Sea and the distant, unseen lands, and felt that wrongness again, like a hand closing around the world. He clenched his fists slowly, not in anger, but in readiness. Okay, he murmured to himself, voice almost playful, almost grim. Let's see what kind of trouble this place has. Dragonstone had always been a place built for ghosts. Even when it was full of soldiers and banners. It felt like the castle was remembering older wars, older flames, older names carved into its stones. The corridors were too wide, the ceilings too high, the air too cold. Every draft sounded like a whisper that didn't belong to the living. They took Goku inside anyway. Daenerys walked ahead with the same calm she wore into battle, though her mind kept circling the same question like a hawk: what is he? Behind her, unsullied, flanked the stranger with spears held ready, not pointed, but close enough to become pointed in the blink of an eye. The Dothraki trailed at a distance, curious and uneasy. Like men watching a new kind of beast. Goku didn't seem bothered. He kept glancing at the torchlight as if he hadn't seen fire this way before, real flame, not bright electric lamps. Not the controlled glow of capsules and machines. He breathed in once, slow and deliberate, like he was tasting the air and finding it strange. Tyrion watched him the way he watched everything, not with fear, but with the hard attention of a man who'd survived by noticing details others missed. They brought him to a training courtyard, an open stone space shielded from the sea wind by high walls. Old scorch marks stained parts of the ground. Dragonstone had seen fire. Daenerys turned to Grey Worm. No blades, she ordered. Grey Worm's jaw tightened. Your Grace. No blades, she repeated. And the finality in her voice left no room for argument. The Unsullied lowered their spears but didn't step away. Goku stood in the center of the courtyard and rolled his shoulders, wincing slightly. He tried to hide it. But Daenerys saw the injury dead in the way he breathed. He was powerful, but he was not untouched. Tyrion stepped closer, hands behind his back, and spoke like he was addressing a merchant. Not a man who had fallen from the sky. So, Goku, he said. If we assume for a moment that you aren't an assassin, and also that you aren't a god, and also that you aren't an exceptionally enthusiastic lunatic, why are you here? Goku blinked. I told you. I got pulled. Like, whoosh. He made a pulling motion again, then shrugged. I didn't choose it. And yet you arrived at the seat of a queen with dragons, Tyrion said, eyebrows lifting. Very convenient. Goku's face scrunched, as if trying to understand the concept of convenience. Is it? Daenerys cut in. You said you feel something wrong in this world. Goku nodded quickly, glad to be asked something that made sense to him. Yeah, like, cold. Not just weather. Like, something that wants everything to stop. Tyrion's smile faded. A poetic way to describe an army of dead men. Goku's head tilted. Dead men. Daenerys held his gaze. White Walkers. The Night King. An enemy that does not tire. Does not bargain. Does not stop. Goku's expression sharpened, not into fear, but into focus. Like a fighter hearing the name of a dangerous opponent. Okay, he said softly. Then that's the problem. Tyrion exhaled. You say that with an optimism that borders on criminal. Goku looked at him, earnest. It's better than giving up. For a moment, Tyrion didn't have a clever answer. Daenerys stepped forward. You offered to show us what you can do. Goku brightened immediately. Oh, yeah. Grey Worm's voice was ice. If you try to harm the queen. Goku raised both hands. I won't. Promise. Daenerys nodded once. Show me. But if you destroy this castle, I will have you thrown into the sea. Goku laughed as if she'd made a joke. Then he saw her face and stopped. Oh, you're serious? Yes, Daenerys said. Very. Goku stood still for a moment, eyes half closing, as if listening inward. His breathing slowed. His posture changed, not dramatic, not theatrical, just different. Lick. A man dropping excess weight and becoming a weapon without needing to look like one. Then, without warning, he vanished. Not ran, not ducked. Vanished. The air made a sharp crack and a gust of wind slapped the unsullied line. 2 soldiers flinched. The Dothraki cursed, stumbling back. Daenerys's eyes tracked the blur. And Goku was suddenly behind Tyrion, leaning forward slightly. Sorry, he said quickly when Tyrion jerked in surprise. I didn't mean to scare you. Tyrion turned slowly, pale. He swallowed. You moved faster than thought. Goku rubbed his neck. Yeah, I can go faster. But I don't want to break stuff. Daenerys felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't a swordmaster. This wasn't a clever sellsword. This was a force of nature wearing a man's smile. Grey Worm stepped forward, voice tense. Again, in front of us. Goku nodded and returned to the center of the courtyard. Okay, watch. He crouched slightly, then pushed off the ground. He didn't jump. He rose. Like gravity had decided to let him go. He floated a few feet above the stone, suspended with such casual ease that for a heartbeat Daenerys thought she was seeing a trick of torchlight. Then he drifted downward again and landed softly, barely making a sound. The courtyard went silent. A Dothraki whispered, "Which?" Grey Worm's face hardened. The Unsullied tightened their formation. Daenerys stared at Goku. How? Goku blinked. Ki. Tyrion repeated the word like it was a foreign coin. Ki. Goku nodded enthusiastically, happy to explain. It's like life energy. Everybody has it. If you train, you can use it. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. Everyone. Goku pointed to one of the Unsullied. He has it. You have it. He pointed at Tyrion. You have it too. Tyrion's lips pressed thin. I'm flattered, but if you tell me I can fly with enough training, I'll begin to suspect you're mocking me. Goku shook his head seriously. Not mocking. It's just hard. Takes a lot of work. Daenerys studied him. Show me its power. Goku glanced around the courtyard. What can I hit? Grey Worm gestured toward a thick stone training post set into the ground. It was used for striking practice, reinforced to survive steel. Goku walked toward it. He placed a hand against it gently, as if he was making peace with the stone first. Then he drew his fist back. Daenerys expected a loud crash, a shattering blow. Instead, Goku tapped it. A single, almost lazy punch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the stone post disintegrated. Not cracked, not broken. It turned into powdered rubble, collapsing in a smooth wave as if it had been sand all along. The sound came after, the soft roar of stone failing. The courtyard filled with dust. Daenerys didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on where the post had been. Tyrion's voice came out dry. That post cost a fortune in labor. I'm sure it's relieved to be freed from its earthly burdens. Goku coughed and waved dust away. Sorry. I tried to be gentle. Daenerys slowly exhaled. Gentle. Goku nodded earnestly. If I hit it hard, it could have, made a bigger hole. A bigger hole, Tyrion echoed. As if tasting the words to make sure they were real. Daenerys's mind raced. With this strength, Goku could end battles before they began. He could tear fleets apart. He could walk into King's Landing and, if he chose, break the Red Keep like an egg. And yet he stood here apologizing to stone. She turned her gaze to his face. You could take the Iron Throne. Goku blinked, confused. Why would I want a chair? Tyrion laughed once, sharp and helpless. Daenerys didn't smile. Power attracts people. They will want you. They will fear you. They will try to use you. Goku's expression softened. I don't like being used. Then you will understand Westeros, Tyrion said. The name hit the air like a blade being drawn. Westeros. Goku glanced between them. So what's the plan? You said there's a Night King thing. Daenerys's voice hardened. The plan is to unite the living. Tyrion added, and to convince certain stubborn people that an apocalypse is more urgent than politics. Goku nodded. Okay. I can help convince them. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. How? Goku held up his fist. I'll show them. Daenerys stepped closer. No. If you walk into a hall of kings and start breaking things, they will call you a monster and rally against you. Goku frowned slightly, not angry, just genuinely troubled. But if they don't listen, people die. That, Tyrion said softly, is the tragedy of rulers. People die whether they listen or not. Goku stared at him for a long moment, as if Tyrion had spoken a language he didn't want to learn. Then Daenerys spoke, cutting through the tension. Jon Snow is on his way. At that name, something shifted in the air, not magic, but momentum. Like a storm cloud moving closer. As if summoned, footsteps echoed from the archway. A group of Northmen entered the courtyard, cloaks heavy with travel, faces grim. At their head walked Jon Snow. He looked thinner than when Daenerys had last seen him. Harder around the eyes. Like the weight of 1,000 dead things had climbed onto his shoulders and refused to leave. His gaze went straight to Daenerys. Then, as always, flicked to Tyrion, measuring, assessing. Then he saw Goku. Jon stopped. The Northmen behind him stopped too. Goku raised a hand cheerfully. Hi. Jon stared, clearly unsure if greeting the stranger was a mistake. Who is he? Daenerys answered evenly. He fell from the sky. Jon's eyes narrowed. That's not an answer. Tyrion sighed. It's the best one we have. Jon stepped forward. What are you? Goku pointed at himself. Goku. Jon's stare did not soften. What are you? Goku blinked, then shrugged. A Saiyan. Jon looked at Daenerys. Is this one of your people? Daenerys said, no. Goku shook his head. I'm from another world. That made the Northmen behind Jon shift, hands going to sword hilts. Jon's voice went colder. Witchcraft. Goku frowned. No. Training. Jon's eyes flicked to the shattered stone post, to the dust. To the scorched crater far below in his memory of the sky flash. Jon's jaw tightened. If you're a weapon, you'll be pointed at the enemy. If you're a threat, I'll put you down. Goku stared at Jon for a moment. Then his smile faded into something calm and serious. I'm not a threat to you, he said quietly. But if there's an army of dead people, I'm not leaving. Jon's eyes held his. This wasn't a lord measuring a sellsword. This was a man who'd seen horrors trying to decide if this new one was salvation, or disaster. Daenerys spoke. Jon, tell him. Jon's mouth tightened. Then he said, we need every advantage. The dead are coming, and they will drown this world. Goku nodded slowly, as if something clicked into place and locked. Okay, he said, voice steady. Take me to them. Tyrion's expression darkened. It's not that simple. Goku looked at Tyrion. Why not? Because men were worse than monsters, Tyrion almost said. Instead he said, because the dead are honest. They only want one thing. And the living? Goku asked. Tyrion looked past him, out toward the sea, toward all the kingdoms and lies and crowns. The living, Tyrion said softly, want everything. A horn sounded somewhere above, sharp, urgent. A messenger rushed into the courtyard, breathless, face pale. He dropped to one knee before Daenerys. Your Grace, he said, voice shaking. A raven from King's Landing. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. From Cersei. The messenger nodded. Tyrion's face tightened like a noose. What does she want now? The messenger swallowed. She invites you to parley. She says, she wishes to speak of the dead. Jon's eyes sharpened instantly. She's lying. Tyrion's laugh was humorless. Of course she's lying. The question is which lie. Daenerys stared at the raven message as if it might bite her. Goku looked between them, then asked simply, so, we're going to talk to her. Jon's voice was flat. Talking won't save us. Goku's fists clenched at his sides. Not with anger. With impatience. He could feel it again, that wrongness. That cold hand around the world. And it was getting closer. The sea tried to swallow their ship the moment they left Dragonstone. Waves rose like black walls, slamming into the hull with a fury that felt personal. Wind screamed through the rigging. Salt soaked everything, clothes, hair, steel, like the world itself wanted to mark them as small. Goku stood at the front of the ship anyway, hands on the railing, letting the spray hit his face. Jon Snow watched him from a few paces back. Most men hated the sea. Most men hated the cold. Most men hated anything they couldn't fight with a sword. Goku looked like he was taking notes. Tyrion had insisted on staying behind with Daenerys, parley preparations, ravens. Councils, because the world of living politics didn't pause for the world of dead monsters. But Jon had refused to wait. Seeing is believing, Jon had said. And if there was one thing Jon understood about Westeros, it was that people didn't believe until the fear was standing right in front of them. He hadn't expected the fear to arrive in the form of a smiling sky man who could crumble stone with a tap. The ship cut north. Days passed. The air grew sharper, thinner. The world lost color. Greens became grays. Even the sea looked tired. Then it appeared. The wall. It rose from the earth like a scar made by gods, an impossible slab of ice stretching beyond sight, swallowing the horizon, cutting the world into before and after. Goku stared up at it and fell silent for the first time since Jon had met him. Big. Goku finally said. Jon snorted. It's not just big. Goku's eyes tracked the ice face, the long shadows, the way the wind shifted near it as if the wall breathed. It feels heavy. Jon's expression tightened. That's the point. They disembarked at Eastwatch. The men there looked like they'd forgotten what warmth was. Their eyes were tired. Their jokes were thin. And when they saw Jon Snow, they straightened like men remembering why they were still standing. When they saw Goku, they reached for weapons. Goku raised both hands quickly, the universal language of "don't stab me." Jon stepped in front of him. He's with me. A broad man with a wild beard and eyes like sharpened flint pushed through the crowd. Tormund Giantsbane. He looked Goku up and down like he was measuring a horse. That's a strange-looking crow you've brought me, he said. Jon sighed. Not a crow. Tormund leaned closer to Goku, sniffed the air like he expected smoke. He smells like storms. Goku blinked. Ah, thanks. Tormund grinned, showing too many teeth. I like him. Jon didn't. Not yet. They didn't waste time. The first night at Eastwatch, Jon gathered the men who would go with them beyond the wall. Hard veterans, wildlings who knew the terrain, watchmen who knew the cold. Goku listened quietly as Jon spoke of what lay beyond. You'll see them, Jon said. And when you do, you'll understand why we're running out of time. Goku nodded. How far? Tormund laughed. Far enough that your balls will try to crawl back inside you. Goku frowned. That's weird. Tormund slapped Jon's shoulder. He's got jokes, this one. Jon didn't smile. When they left in the morning, the cold hit like a punch. Beyond the wall, the world wasn't just winter, it was dead winter. Snow didn't fall gently. It moved sideways, cutting at eyes and lips. The trees were skeletal. The ground felt brittle, like it would crack if the living walked too loudly. Goku stepped through the gate and paused. He closed his eyes. Jon noticed. What? Goku's brow furrowed. I'm trying to feel people. Life. Animals. Anything. Jon waited. Goku opened his eyes again, and for the first time, there was something uneasy in them. I can't, he said quietly. It's like the whole place is muted. Tormund spat into the snow. The north eats sound, eats heat, eats hope. Goku looked ahead at the white wilderness. Something's doing that. Jon said, yes. They walked for hours. The sun stayed pale and weak. Their breaths turned to smoke. Even Goku's body, built for climates far worse than this, began to feel the bite of it in a way that didn't make sense. Not normal cold. A cold that wanted. A cold that reached for the inside of you. They found the first sign near dusk. A scattering of bones. Not animal. Human. Half buried in snow, ribs like broken cages, skulls turned upward as if the dead were still trying to watch the sky. Tormund Krush. Dian touched the bones with 2 fingers. Fresh enough, he muttered. Not frozen solid yet. Jon's hand tightened around the hilt of his sword. Goku crouched too, staring. His nostrils flared once. No key, he murmured. Jon looked at him. What? Goku pointed at the bones. There's nothing left. No life. No, anything. Jon said, they're dead. Goku's jaw tightened. I've fought people who died. But, even then, I could feel them before they fell. I could feel their spirit burn out. He looked up into the trees. This feels like they were emptied. Tormund growled low. They moved again. Then the snow ahead of them shifted. Not wind. Movement. Jon lifted his fist, signaling halt. The group froze. Silence thickened. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. A shape rose from behind a drift. A man, once. Now something else. Its skin was gray-blue, stretched tight over bone. Its eyes were pale and dead. It wore torn leathers and rusted mail. Its mouth hung slight. Lee opened like it was trying to remember how to breathe. A white. John drew his sword. Others did the same. Goku stepped forward. John grabbed his arm. Wait. Goku looked at John. You want me to see it, right? John's grip tightened. I want you to see it without getting us killed. Goku nodded once. Then he walked past John anyway. The white turned its head, slowly, unnaturally, like a puppet being pulled by strings. It hissed. Then it lunged. Fast. Faster than a dead body should move. Goku sidestepped. Not hurried. Not panicked. The white's clawed hand swiped through empty air. Gawk. You flicked 2 fingers out, barely a touch, against the white's chest. The creature exploded backward like it had been kicked by a giant. It slammed into a tree so hard the trunk cracked. Bones snapped. Flesh tore. It fell in pieces. The group stared. Tormund barked a laugh. Ha! That's one way. John didn't relax. More. As if his word summoned them, the snow around them began to stir. Shapes rose. 10, 20, more. They emerged from drifts and behind trees, from places the living would never hide. They moved with the same jerking speed, the same awful purpose. Goku's eyes narrowed. Not fear. Calculation. Okay. He said quietly. Stay behind me. John bristled. We don't. Then the first wave hit. Steel rang. Men shouted. Dragonglass daggers flashed, black and sharp. A white grabbed a watchman by the throat. The man screamed. Another white sank teeth into a wildling's shoulder and tore like an animal. John hacked one down, but it kept crawling, hands dragging itself forward. Goku's face hardened. He moved. In the space of a heartbeat, he was everywhere. A white lunged. Goku spun, palm striking its jaw. The head snapped clean off. Another charged. Goku swept its legs and tapped its spine. It folded, broken like kindling. He didn't blast. He didn't shout. He fought with terrifying restraint, using just enough power to disable without turning the battlefield into a crater. But there were too many. Whites poured out of the snow like the earth itself was giving birth to death. Goku jumped, then stopped mid-air, hovering above the chaos. John's eyes widened, for half a second before he refocused on his own fight. Goku lifted one hand. A small sphere of light formed in his palm, humming softly. Hey! He called, loud enough to cut through screams. Everybody down. Some obeyed. Some didn't understand. Some didn't have time. Goku angled his palm toward the largest cluster of whites and released the energy in a thin wave, controlled, like a blade of light. The beam swept across the snow. Whites exploded into fragments. Arms, torsos, heads scattered like broken dolls. The smell of burnt rot filled the air. The battlefield quieted for one stunned second. Tormund stared up at Goku. Wild-eyed. That's cheating. Goku dropped lightly back to the ground, breathing a little heavier. He wiped sweat from his brow, an odd thing, in this cold. And then, the fragments twitched. A severed hand clawed at the snow. A head rolled and opened its dead mouth, teeth snapping. A torso dragged itself forward, ribs scraping the ground. Goku froze. His eyes widened, not in horror at gore, but in disbelief at the rule being broken. They're still moving, he said, voice low. John shoved a dragonglass dagger into a crawling white skull. It went still. Kill them with dragonglass. John snapped, breath harsh. Or fire. Otherwise they don't stop. Goku stared at the reanimating pieces like he'd been slapped. I destroyed them, he said. John answered with bitter clarity. You broke them. Goku's jaw clenched. That doesn't make sense. Tormund stabbed a white through the heart with dragonglass. It collapsed instantly. Makes perfect sense. They ain't alive. They ain't dead. They're his. Goku looked up, scanning the trees, the snow, the empty sky. He tried again, reaching out with his senses, pushing his awareness like a net. Nothing. No heat signatures of life. No pulse of ki. Just cold emptiness. And something faint, distant, wrong. Like a shadow behind the world. Goku's eyes narrowed, and he whispered, almost to himself, there's someone pulling them. John stepped beside him, blood on his cheek, sword dripping dark. Now you understand. Goku's voice tightened. Where is he? John's gaze went north, closer than we'd like. The wind changed. Not stronger. Not faster. Different. It slid through the trees with a sound like a whisper in a dead man's ear. The temperature dropped so suddenly the men's breath turned to mist that fell like dust. And then they saw them. On a ridge in the distance, silent, unmoving, figures stood watching. Tall, still, pale shapes half hidden by blowing snow. White walkers. They did not charge. They did not roar. They simply observed, as if they were studying the living the way a butcher studies meat. Goku stared at them. He tried to feel them. Nothing. But the wrongness in the air intensified until it felt like his lungs were breathing winter. One of the figures lifted its head slightly. Not looking at John. Not looking at Tormund. Looking at Goku. As if it had noticed something new. Something dangerous. Something warm. Goku's fists tightened. Not because he was eager. Because for the first time since arriving in Westeros, he wasn't sure brute force would be enough. John, he said quietly, eyes still locked on the ridge. Those aren't like the others. John's voice was grim. No, the White Walkers didn't move. But the snow around the group began to shift again. More whites rising, more dead hands reaching, the trap closing. And far beyond the ridge, deeper in the darkness, so far away that even eyes struggled to focus, there was a silhouette on horseback. Perfectly still, like the world had frozen around it. A presence that didn't need to shout to be felt. Goku's spine prickled. He couldn't sense ki, but he could sense intent. Cold, ancient, certain intent. The kind that didn't come from anger, but from inevitability. Goku exhaled slowly. Okay, he murmured, voice steadying. Now I get it. He looked at John. Get everyone back to the wall. He said. I'll hold them. John's eyes widened. You can't hold an army alone. Goku's mouth curled, not into a grin, but into something calm and fierce. I'm not alone, he said. Then he turned back toward the dead rising all around them, toward the winter that wanted the world to stop. And his aura flickered faintly, like a candle refusing to go out in a storm. The dead came in waves. Not the way living armies came, shouting, rallying, breaking formation under fear. These didn't fear. They flowed. Whites climbed over each other like insects, crawling out of snowdrifts. Dropping from branches, bursting up from shallow graves the earth hadn't finished forgetting. Their hands were stiff, their faces frozen in half-remembered expressions of pain and hunger. And in the middle of them, Goku stood like a living torch. John's group fell back in a tight knot, blades flashing, breath ragged. Tormund shoved a watchman forward, bellowing at him to move while slicing a white's arm clean off. The arm still crawled. The world was full of crawling parts. John looked over his shoulder once, just once, and saw Goku turn, lift his palm, and release a control. Lead burst of light that swept the snow clean in a wide arc. Dozens of whites broke apart. Then, they began to twitch. Pieces stirred like puppets waking again. John's throat tightened. Goku had understood it now. You could break them. You could scatter them. But unless the link was severed, the dead didn't stay dead. They kept moving until the cold will behind them decided otherwise. Go! John roared. They ran. Not in panic. John didn't allow panic, but in grim necessity, boots pounding frozen ground, shoulders slamming into trees, breath burning their lungs as the wind clawed at their faces. Behind them, Goku moved. He didn't chase the fleeing men. He held the line. He became the line. A white lunged at him. Goku turned his body slightly, letting it pass, then tapped the back of its skull with 2 fingers. The creature's head snapped forward like it had been struck by a hammer. It collapsed. Another grabbed for his waist. Goku caught its wrist and twisted. Bones cracked like dry sticks. He shoved it away. A third, fourth, fifth piled in. Goku exhaled and let something open inside him. Not rage, not bloodlust, just focus, the calm that came before impact. A faint aura flickered around him. Barely visible in the snowstorm, like heat haze in winter. The whites froze for half a heartbeat, as if their dead instincts recognized something that shouldn't exist here. Then they rushed him again. Goku slammed both palms into the ground. A shockwave burst outward, controlled, low to the earth, meant to clear space without turning the cliffside into a crater. Snow exploded up in a ring. Whites flew back, tumbling like broken dolls. He rose as they fell, breathing harder now. The cold here wasn't only cold. It tugged at him. Every time he pulled his energy outward, he north answered by trying to smother it, like the world was made of damp cloth pressed over a flame. Goku didn't understand the magic, but he understood the feeling. This place was hostile to life. He glanced toward the ridge. The White Walkers stood there still. Watching. Unmoving. Not even wind seemed to touch them. One of them tilted its head. Not in curiosity. In appraisal. Goku Naro wet his eyes and tried again, reached out with his senses like he always did. Nothing. No key. No heartbeat. No living spark. Just absence. That absence pressed back, as if the act of searching offended it. Goku's jaw tightened. Fine, he muttered. Then I'll do this the old way. A white sprinted at him, fast as a wolf. Goku grabbed it by the throat and lifted it, effortless, then stared into its dead eyes. There was no person behind them. No soul. No struggle. Just a puppet. Goku's expression hardened. He slammed it into the ground and pinned it with his knee. With 2 quick strikes, he shattered its arms at the elbows and snapped its legs at the knee. The white still snapped its teeth, still tried to claw. Goku ripped a strip of cloth from his own torn sleeve and tied its jaw shut. Then he looked toward where John and the others had fled, and he shouted, loud enough to cut through the wind. John, take this one. In the distance, silhouettes slowed, turned. John hesitated. A heartbeat. Then he ran back with 2 men, dragonglass daggers ready. Goku threw the broken white toward them, not at their heads, but into the snow before their feet. The thing writhed and hissed, jaw bound, eyes rolling. John stared at it, then stared at Goku. You're insane, John said. Goku shrugged. Maybe. But you said you needed proof. Tormund jogged up behind John, panting. He saw he captured White and laughed like a madman. Ha! The crows got a pet. John didn't laugh. He crouched, drove a dragonglass shard through the White's shoulder like a stake, pinning it to a thick wood. Sled they'd dragged along for supplies. The creature jerked, but the pin held it. Will it stay? John asked. Goku's eyes flicked to the ridge. If the ones watching decide it should. John's face tightened. Then we move. Now. Goku nodded once. He turned back to the rising dead. The army had regrouped. Whites were already climbing over their shattered bodies, rebuilding themselves into a tide. And the White Walkers still did not advance. They didn't need to. Their weapon was time. Their weapon was numbers. Their weapon was the living growing tired. Goku drew a slow breath. Okay, he said, voice calm, last push. He lifted his hands, palms outward. Not a full power blast. Not even close. Just enough. 2 thin beams shot forward like spears of light, carving through the incest cluster of whites and igniting them in a line of fire. Burning bodies collapsed, smoke twisting into the wind. Fire, real fire, stopped them. That was a rule Goku respected. The group ran again, dragging the pinned White on the sled, boots slipping, arms straining. Goku moved with them now, staying at the back, tapping Whites away when they came too close, blasting small bursts to set them alight when the horde thickened. But each burst cost more here than it should have. The cold bit deeper each time. His breath came faster. Not because he was weak. Because the north was wrong. They reached the wall at dusk. The gate loomed ahead like salvation carved from ice. Men on the battlements shouted and lowered the winch mechanisms. The gate groaned open, and the group spilled thr. Ow like survivors crawling out of a grave. Goku stepped through last. The moment he crossed the threshold, he felt it. A shift. Like invisible pressure lifted off his lungs. Warmth didn't return, not truly, but the hostility lessened. He looked back. Beyond the wall, the wilderness stretched out under a gray sky, snow blowing like ash. For a moment, he thought he saw a silhouette in the distance, a rider on a dark horse. Still as a statue. Then the snow thickened, and it was gone. John slammed the gate shut. The sound echoed like a coffin lid closing. Silence fell. They dragged the pinned, hissing White into the courtyard of Eastwatch. Men backed away from it, faces pale. Goku stood over it, staring down, fists clenched. I've fought monsters, he said quietly. John wiped blood from his lip. These aren't monsters. Quote, what are they then? Goku asked. John looked up at the wall, at the ancient ice, at the blackening sky. They're the end, John said. South, back into the world of crowns. It took days to get back to Dragonstone. The sea was calmer this time, but the mood on the ship was not. Every creak of wood felt like a countdown. The White stayed pinned and restrained in the ship's hold. Wrapped in chains and soaked cloth to keep it from biting. It hissed constantly, a dry, hungry sound that made men sleep with hands on weapons. Goku visited it once. John followed, watching him like a hawk. Goku crouched near the creature, stared into its dead eyes again, and tried, one more time, to sense anything at all. Nothing. He sat back on his heels, troubled. It's not a fighter, Goku murmured. It's not even a person anymore. It's like a tool. John said, that's what makes it worse. Goku nodded slowly. Then he looked up at John. I can beat them, he said. John didn't argue. Goku continued, voice steady. But if I beat them and everyone still fights each other, then the world dies anyway. John's gaze hardened. Now you understand Westeros. Goku exhaled through his nose. Almost a laugh but not quite. Yeah. Dragonstone welcomed them with uneasy silence. When Daenerys came down to the courtyard to meet them, she expected grim news. She did not expect a dead thing in chains. The white was dragged out into the open at Tyrion's insistence. The moment it saw living faces, it snapped and writhed, rattling iron. Its bound jaw bulged against the cloth, desperate to bite. Unsullied flinched, just a little. Daenerys did not, but her eyes sharpened into something colder than any dragonfire. This is your proof, John said. Tyrio. En stared at the white like it was a nightmare that had learned to walk. And here I thought I'd seen every ugly truth a man could survive. Goku stood beside the sled, arms crossed, expression serious. Daenerys stepped closer to the white. It lunged as far as its restraints allowed, teeth cracking against cloth. She didn't step back. She looked at John. Cersei will have to see it. John said, yes. Tyrion's mouth tightened. And she will smile and pretend to care and then try to kill us anyway. Goku blinked. Why would she do that if the world's ending? Tyrion looked up at him. For a moment, he didn't sound sarcastic. He sounded tired. Because she thinks the world ends for everyone else first, Tyrion said. Goku's brows drew together. That's stupid. Tyrion gave a short, bitter laugh. Welcome to politics. Daenerys turned her gaze to Goku. You did this, she said, meaning the capture, meaning the survival, meaning the impossible. Goku nodded once. We needed something they can't ignore. Daenerys studied him, then said, they will try to ignore it anyway. Goku's fists clenched slightly at his sides. John watched him, and in that moment he saw it. Not rage, not arrogance. Frustration. The kind of frustration that came from someone who believed the world could be better, and couldn't understand why it chose not to be. Daenerys spoke again, voice firm. We go to King's Landing. We show her. We force the truth into her eyes. Tyrion lifted a hand. And while we're forcing truths into her eyes, we should remember she has an unfortunate habit of forcing knives into backs. Goku looked between them. So, she's going to try to trap us. Tyrion spread his hands. Most likely. Goku tilted his head, serious. Then why go? John's answer was immediate. Because if she doesn't join, we lose. Goku stared at the chained white, listening to it hiss, watching it strain against iron with inhuman persistence. Then he looked up at Daenerys. I'll come, he said. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. This is not your war. Goku shook his head. It is if I'm here. A raven cried overhead. Somewhere far north, winter moved again. And in King's Landing, a queen who only understood fear was about to be offered the most terrifying gift imaginable. Proof. Winterfell didn't welcome strangers. It endured them. The castle rose from the north like it had been carved out of stubbornness itself. Thick walls, dark stone, smoke curling from chimneys like the last warm breath of a world that refused to die. The wind here didn't just blow, it judged. It carried the smell of pine, iron, and old battles that had soaked into the ground and never fully left. When Jon Snow rode through the gates, the men on the wall straightened. When they saw who rode beside him, they tightened hands on spear shafts. Goku sat on a borrowed horse like he'd never met a horse that didn't secretly want to throw him off. He smiled anyway, waving at the staring guards like they were neighbors at a market. Hi. No one waved back. A few muttered prayers. One of the gate guards spat into the snow and said, "That's him." John's voice was flat. "That's him." Goku leaned toward John and whispered, "Are they always like this?" John didn't look at him. "Yes." Goku nodded thoughtfully, as if adding it to a growing list titled Things About Westeros That Make No Sense. In the courtyard, the north had gathered like a storm cloud, lords in furs, soldiers in boiled leather, wild-eyed men who'd never left the cold and didn't plan to start now. They stared at Goku with the same suspicion they'd once reserved for dragons and southern promises. At the top of the stairs stood Sansa Stark. She didn't rush down to greet her brother. She didn't smile like a girl reunited. Her face was composed, careful. And her eyes were the eyes of someone who had learned the cost of being wrong about people. She watched Goku the way a commander watches a weapon being rolled into the yard. Beside her was Arya, smaller. Sharper, eyes like knives, already halfway down the steps before anyone spoke. And behind them, unmoving in his chair, was Bran Stark. Bran didn't stare at Goku like the others did. He watched him like he'd seen him already. Jon dismounted first, boots hitting stone. He climbed the steps and hugged Sansa hard enough that she closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Letting herself be only his sister before she became Winterfell again. Then she looked past him. So that's the thing that fell from the sky, Sansa said. Goku slid off the horse too easily, Ost-like gravity was optional for him, then brushed snow from his sleeve. That's me, he said politely. I'm Goku. Sansa didn't offer her name. And you're here because. Goku glanced at Jon, then back at her. Because people are in trouble. Sansa held his gaze. People are always in trouble. Goku blinked at that, like he didn't know what to do with it. Arya cut in, stepping closer, eyes bright with dangerous curiosity. Show me. Jon exhaled sharply. Arya. No, Arya said, not looking at him. If he's real, I want to see it. If he's a liar, I want to know now. Goku scratched the back of his head. Okay. He looked around the yard like he was searching for something safe to demonstrate with. His eyes landed on the training grounds, wooden dummies, straw targets, a ring of packed snow where men sparred. Goku walked over, picked up a training sword resting against a rack, and weighed it in his hand. It was heavy and poorly balanced. He frowned at it like it had offended him. Then he handed it back gently and said, I don't really use those. A few men scoffed. One muttered, then what good is he? Goku crouched beside a broken piece of timber near the sparring ring. He lifted it with 2 fingers and held it out to Arya. Try to break this, he said. Arya took it, frowned, and snapped it across her knee. It cracked cleanly. Goku nodded, pleased. Okay. Then he reached down, picked up a fist-sized stone from the ground, dark, heavy, frozen at the edges, and held it the same way. Now try this. Arya took the stone, tested it, then tried to break it like the wood. Nothing. She adjusted her grip, braced, and pushed harder. The stone didn't even creak. She stared up at Goku, annoyed. Goku smiled. All right, watch. He took the stone back, held it in his palm, and tapped it once with his finger. The stone turned to powder. Not cracked, not shattered. It simply became dust, spilling through his hand in a slow gray stream. The courtyard went dead silent. Someone whispered, 7 hells. Sansa's eyes narrowed, calculating. Arya's eyes widened, not fear, but something close to excitement. Jon watched the crowd's reaction and felt the truth settle in like a weight. This wasn't awe. This was panic dressed up as awe. Power that didn't fit their world made them feel small, and small men always did something dangerous to stop feeling small. Goku dusted his hands off, looking slightly embarrassed. Sorry. I'm trying not to scare anyone. Sansa finally stepped forward a single pace. You're not scaring them. Her voice was calm, but Jon heard the warning beneath it. You're reminding them, Sansa continued, that they don't control you. Goku blinked. I don't want to control anyone. Sansa's gaze hardened. That won't matter. Behind them, Bran spoke quietly. He's warm. Everyone turned. Bran's eyes were distant, unfocused, like he was listening to something far away. The dead will notice him, Bran said. They already have. A chill moved through the yard that wasn't from wind. Goku looked at Bran, suddenly serious. You can feel them. Bran didn't answer the way people normally answered. The Night King is not coming because he hates us, Bran said. He's coming because he must. And he will come faster if he knows something strong is here. Jon's stomach tightened. Then we'll be ready. Sansa didn't look convinced. Ready with what? Men with spears. Goku stepped forward. We can train. Sansa looked at him like he'd just suggested they teach wolves to knit. Train? How? Goku inhaled slowly, then exhaled. The air fogged in front of him. Not to be like me, he said. That takes a long time. Years. Maybe longer here. A few men laughed bitterly. Goku didn't flinch. He kept going. But I can teach people to fight better, he said. To move better. To stay calm. To hit harder. To not freeze when the fear hits. Arya's voice was immediate. Do it. Jon nodded. Do it. Sansa hesitated, then made the choice Winterfell demanded. Fine, she said. But if you waste time. Goku raised a hand quickly. I won't. And just like that, the shape of the coming war shifted. The first lesson, breath and fear. Goku's training didn't begin with punches. It began with breathing. He gathered Jon, Arya, a handful of the best fighters Winterfell had, Brienne of Tarth, a few northern captains. Hardened wildlings who didn't like listening to anyone, and even the Hound who stood off to the side like a threat given human skin. Goku paced in front of them, hands behind his head, thinking. Okay, he said. Rule 1, when you panic, your body gets stupid. The Hound barked a laugh. That's deep. Goku nodded seriously. It is. Being stupid gets you killed. Jon's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Almost not. Goku pointed at Jon. You've seen the dead. What happens when the fear hits? Jon answered without thinking. People stop moving. Exactly, Goku said. So we fix that. He made them stand in the snow, still, feet planted, then guided them through something simple. Inhale slow. Exhale slower. Feel the ground. Keep the eyes open. Keep the shoulders down. Men complained. Men rolled their eyes. Men called it nonsense. Then Goku demonstrated. He asked one of the northern captains to charge him. The captain did, sword raised, teeth bared. Goku didn't move his feet. He didn't tense. He simply breathed. At the last moment, he slid half an inch to the side and tapped the captain's wrist. The sword flew out of the man's grip and stuck into a wooden post with a thunk. The captain nearly fell on his face. Goku caught him by the shoulder and steadied him as if they were dancing. No panic, Goku said gently. See, you were strong, but you were loud. Loud is easy to read. Brienne stared at him like she'd never seen someone fight like this. Arya stared like she was hungry. Jon stared like he was watching a door open. Sansa watched from the steps, arms folded tight, and didn't move, but she didn't leave either. The second lesson, heat in the hands. By the third day, the courtyard had become something new. Not a place of drills. A place of work. Goku taught them how to strike with their bodies aligned, how to move without wasting motion, how to keep their center under them so the dead couldn't knock them down in the crush. He taught them to fight in tight spaces, to protect each other, to fall without dying. And then, quietly, he tried something else. One night, after the last sparring match, he sat with Jon and Arya by a brazier. The fire popped and crackled. The cold pressed in hard outside the circle of heat. Goku held his hands out over the flames. Ki is life energy, he said again. More softly this time, but here, it's thin. Like the world doesn't want to give it. Jon watched the flames. The north feels like it's dying. Goku nodded. Yeah. Arya leaned forward. Can you teach it to me? Goku studied her for a long moment. You learn fast, he said. Arya's eyes didn't blink. So teach me. Goku exhaled. Okay. But not flying. Not blasts. Not that. Arya didn't look disappointed. She looked relieved he'd said yes. Goku tapped his chest. Just warmth. In the hands. Enough to keep your fingers from going numb. Enough to keep your blade steady. Jon frowned. That's possible. Quote. Goku closed his eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air around his hands shimmered faintly. Not light. Not fire. Heat. The brazier's flame leaned toward him as if recognizing something familiar. Arya's eyes widened. Goku opened his eyes. Try. Arya held her hands out. At first, nothing. Then her fingers twitched. She clenched them, frustrated. Goku shook his head. Not force. Focus. Arya swallowed her impatience like she always did and tried again. A minute passed. 2. Then Jon saw it, barely visible, a faint tremble in the air near Arya's palms. Like the beginning of something. Arya's breath hitched. Goku smiled slowly, proud. There, he said. You felt it. Arya stared at her hands like they had become weapons of their own. Jon looked at Goku. That won't kill the Night King. Goku's smile faded. No. He looked toward the dark beyond Winterfell's walls. But it might keep you alive long enough to reach him. Winterfell's reality. Not everyone approved. Northern lords whispered that Jon had brought a demon into their castle. Others whispered he'd brought a god. Most whispered the same thing in different words. He's not ours. Sansa heard it all. One evening, she confronted Jon in the Great Hall after the fires had burned low and most men had gone to sleep. You trust him, she said. Jon didn't deny it. I trust what he wants. Sansa's eyes were sharp. Wanting doesn't stop blades. Jon's voice hardened. Neither does doubt. Sansa paused, then said quietly, if the dead don't kill us, men will try to use him. Or kill him. Or both. Jon exhaled slowly. I know. Sansa stepped closer. Then be smarter than you've ever been. Jon looked at her, the sister who had learned war in a way he'd never wanted her to. I'm trying, he said. Sansa's gaze flicked toward the courtyard where Goku still trained alone sometimes, moving through strange, fluid forms beneath moonlight like a man practicing a dance only he remembered. He's too bright, Sansa whispered. This world eats bright things. Jon didn't answer. Because deep down, he feared she was right. The warning. On the 6th night, Bran asked to speak with Goku alone. Jon followed anyway, because Jon didn't know how to stop guarding people he cared about. They met in the Godswood. Snow dusted the red leaves. Ehart tree looked like it was bleeding into the night. Bran sat beneath it, eyes distant. Goku stood in front of him, unusually quiet. Bran spoke first. You don't belong here. Goku nodded. Yeah. Bran's voice was calm. The Night King will come for you. Goku frowned. Me. For what you represent, Bran said. Warmth. Life. Defiance. Goku's fists tightened. Then I'll fight him. Bran's eyes sharpened just a little. You can't kill him the way you kill other things. Goku's jaw set. I know. I felt it. Bran tilted his head. He knows you felt it. Jon's blood ran colder than the snow. Goku stepped closer. Can you show me where he is? Bran's gaze drifted away, as if following something invisible. He's moving, Bran whispered. And the storm is moving with him. The wind through the Godswood changed. Not louder. Sharper. Colder. A flake of snow landed on Jon's cheek. Then another. Then another. Jon looked up. Snow was falling over Winterfell. Not the gentle kind. The kind that came before the sky turned into a weapon. Goku lifted a hand and let a snowflake land on his palm. It didn't melt. It just sat there, cold and stubborn. Goku's face hardened. Okay, he said softly. Jon watched the snowfall thicken, watched the darkness beyond the walls, and felt the war's shadow crawl closer. In the distance, a horn sounded, low, long, and frightened. Not an alarm. A warning. Winterfell was about to learn whether training could outrun death. Winterfell's courtyards stopped feeling like training grounds. They started feeling like a last breath being held. The snow didn't melt anymore. It layered. It packed into corners. It clung to banners and helms and eyelashes until everyone looked half-buried already, living statues waiting to see which way the storm would decide to lean. And then the Dragon Queen arrived. The day Daenerys rode into Winterfell, the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with wings. Drogon came first, a moving shadow that swallowed sunlight. His roar rolled over the castle like thunder that had learned how to hate. Rhaegal followed, green-black, leaner, wilder, eyes like a storm over a battlefield. Men froze in the yard. Some dropped to one knee out of reflex. Some raised bows and then lowered them again, realizing how pointless courage could be when faced with a living furnace. Goku stood in the middle of it all with his hands in his pockets, staring up like he'd forgotten how to blink. Okay, he said softly, as if he'd finally found the one thing in Westeros that felt familiar. That's awesome. Jon watched the north watch the dragons. Fear wasn't a scream here. It was quiet. It was the way a man's throat moved when he swallowed. It was the way Sansa's jaw tightened as she measured the cost of this alliance all over again. Daenerys dismounted with practiced authority, cloak snapping in the wind. She looked tired. Not weak, never that, but tired in the way fire looked tired when it had to keep burning despite the cold trying to smother it. Her gaze landed on Jon first. Then on Goku. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, relief, perhaps, or calculation, or both. You made it, she said to Jon. Then she looked to Goku, chin lifting slightly. And you're still here. Goku nodded. People still need help. Daenerys's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Yes, she said. They do. Tyrion arrived a moment later, bundled in enough fur to look like a man being swallowed by his own wardrobe. He stepped into the yard, stared at the snow, and sighed like it personally offended him. "This place is actively trying to kill me," he muttered. The hound grunted. "It's the north." Tyrion glanced up at the dragons circling above and added, "And now it's trying to kill me with flying nightmares too." Goku, still staring up, called out, "Hey! Do you think they'd let me ride one?" Silence. Every head in the courtyard turned to him. Sansa looked like she'd bitten into something sour. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. "No one rides my dragons." Goku blinked. "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean." Then Drogon dropped lower, low enough that the wind from his wings blasted snow off rooftops. He landed outside the main yard with a heavy, bone-shaking thump, claws digging into ice. And he looked straight at Goku. Not at Daenerys. At Goku. The dragon's nostrils flared. Smoke curled out, slow and warning-like. Goku took a step forward without thinking. Jon's hand shot out and grabbed his sleeve. "Don't." Goku didn't pull away, but he didn't stop either. "He's not mad," he said quietly. Jon's eyes were hard. "You don't know that." Goku turned his head slightly, still watching Drogon. "I do." Jon didn't understand how someone could say that so confidently. Then Gon lowered his head, just a little, like a mountain bowing to inspect an ant. Goku raised his hand, palm open. The dragon didn't allow it to touch. Not yet. But he didn't snap. He didn't burn. He just watched, eyes molten. As if measuring the difference between fearless and foolish. Daenerys stepped closer, voice sharp. "Drogon." Drogon's head turned slightly toward her, acknowledging her like a storm acknowledging a mountain. Then his gaze slid back to Goku again. A problem. A bigger problem than anyone wanted to name out loud. Because the dragons, Daenerys's greatest power, were CTing to the Sky Man in a way no one could control. The North's first mistake. That night, in the War Council, the tension was thick enough to cut. Maps lay on the table. Candles trembled. Everyone's breath looked like smoke. Jon spoke of the dead's numbers. Daenerys spoke of dragons as weapons. Sansa spoke of supplies and exhaustion and the harsh truth that soldiers ate whether or not they felt heroic. Tyrion spoke carefully. "As always, we can't waste the dragons," he said. "But we can't lose them either." Goku listened quietly, arms folded, brow furrowed. When Daenerys said, "We strike first. We burn their army before it reaches us," Goku finally spoke. "That might not work," he said. Every head turned. Daenerys's eyes sharpened. "And you say that because?" Goku's voice stayed calm. "Because they don't fight like normal enemies. Fire kills the little ones, yeah. But the cold guys, the real ones, they can adapt. They don't get scared. They don't break." Jon nodded. "He's right." Daenerys's jaw tightened. "Dragons are not normal weapons." Goku met her gaze. "Neither is he." Silence. Bran's voice came soft from the corner. "The Night King wants the dragons." Daenerys turned sharply. "What?" Bran didn't blink. "He wants them because they're the biggest fire in the world. If he takes them, he takes hope." Jon's stomach dropped. Tyrion's face went pale. Daenerys stared at Bran like she wanted to deny him, like she wanted to turn prophecy into something she could stab. "He can't take them," she said. Bran answered with the cold certainty of someone who didn't guess. "He can." Goku's hands clenched slowly. "How?" Bran looked toward the window, toward the swirling snow. "With cold. With death. With patience." Daenerys stood, voice hard. "Then we don't let him get close enough." She looked at Jon. "We scout. We find him. We burn him." Jon opened his mouth, ready to argue. But Goku spoke first. "I'll go," he said. Daenerys's eyes snapped to him. "No." Goku blinked. "Why not?" "Because you are unknown," Daenerys said, choosing her words like she was choosing knives. "And if you fall, I lose a weapon." Goku's expression tightened, not offended, just disappointed. "I'm not a weapon." Tyrion cleared his throat quickly, voice strained with diplomacy. "Not in the philosophical sense, no. But in the practical." Goku cut him off gently. "People. I'm here for people. If scouting saves people, I go." Jon said, "I'm going." Daenerys looked between them. Then her gaze flicked toward Bran, who sat like a candle in a storm, unmoving. Finally, she said, "Fine." Her voice sharpened. "But we go together. The dragons go with us." Goku's eyes narrowed slightly. "Be careful." Daenerys's mouth tightened. "I am always careful." Jon didn't believe that. Neither did the north. Flight into the teeth of winter. They left before dawn. Snow fell in sharp sheets, biting skin like sand. The world beyond Winterfell was a pale graveyard of trees and frost and silence. Daenerys rode Drogon. Jon rode Rhaegal, awkward and tense, like a man holding onto a storm and hoping it didn't decide to kill him. Goku flew. Not high, not far, he stayed near them. Hovering beside Drogon's wing as if this was normal. The first time he rose into the air, Jon's breath caught. He had seen dragons. He had seen magic. He had seen priests resurrect men. But there was something unnerving about a man flying without wings. Goku glanced at Jon and smiled midair. "You okay?" Jon's voice was tight. "Just, try not to fall." Goku laughed lightly. "I won't." The cold climbed higher the farther north they went. Goku felt it in his bones, like the sky itself was draining him. His aura, when he let it flicker, felt like a candle being starved of air. And yet he could feel the dragons clearly. Living heat, living fury. They were bright in his senses in a way nothing else in this land was. Which meant, if he could feel them, the enemy could too. He looked out at the white wilderness and murmured, "He's gonna come for them." Daenerys shouted something ahead, voice lost in wind. Then Jon's voice snapped over the roar of wings. There, below them, a dark shape moved through the snow. Not one, many, whites. A scattered advance line, moving fast, unnatural shapes weaving between trees like the forest itself was vomiting death. Daenerys's eyes flashed. Dracarys. Fire poured from Drogon's jaws in a long, brutal stream. The whites ignited instantly, burning black, collapsing into ash and smoke. Rhaegal joined, his fire hotter. Wild and green gold in the half-light. Snow hissed where flame touched ground. The dead burned. For a moment, it looked easy. For a moment, it looked like Daenerys was right. Then the storm changed. The wind stopped. Not calmed, stopped. The snow hung in the air as if time had hesitated. Goku's skin prickled. Jon's dragon shifted beneath him, uneasy. Drogon's wings beat harder, smoke curling from his nostrils. Something was coming. Goku turned his head slowly. And saw a figure on a ridge. Tall, still, too far away to see eyes, but close enough to feel the world's temperature drop around it. A white walker. It lifted its arm, and in its hand was a spear made of ice, long, pale, sharp enough to cut daylight. Jon's throat tightened. No, the spear flew. It didn't whistle like a normal weapon. It cut through the air like winter itself had thrown a knife. Goku moved without thinking. He flashed forward, faster than sight, placing himself between the spear and Drogon. His hand snapped out. He caught it. For half a heartbeat, he felt triumph. Then the cold hit him. Not on his skin. Inside. The spear's ice wasn't frozen water. It was death made solid, magic that didn't want warmth to exist. The instant his fingers closed around it, frost raced up his forearm like a living thing. His muscles seized. His ki sputtered as if someone had poured ash on a flame. Goku's eyes widened. Whoa! He threw the spear away, but his motion was slower than it should have been, just a fraction. Enough. The White Walker on the ridge lifted another spear. And this time, it aimed for Rhaegal. Jon shouted, "Turn." Rhaegal tried. But dragons were fast, not perfect. The spear hit. It slammed into Rhaegal's shoulder with a sound like ice splitting a mountain. The dragon roared, pure pain. Shaking the sky. Jon nearly slipped off, clinging desperately to a ridge of scales as Rhaegal banked hard, wing flaring unevenly. Daenerys screamed his name. Whether Jon's or the dragon's, no one could tell. Goku forced his frozen arm to move, shaking it violently. Frost cracked and fell away, but his hand burned with numb agony. He shot upward toward the ridge. Too late. The White Walker's spear didn't need to kill the dragon instantly. It only needed to wound. Because the dead were already moving below. Whites poured from the trees, swarming toward where Rhaegal began to lose altitude. Jon shouted, voice raw. Up, up. Rhaegal beat his wings, struggling, then dipped again, forced down by pain and weight and the brutal truth that even dragons could bleed. Daenerys dove Drogon after them. Goku dove too. The ground rushed up. The dead rushed faster. Rhaegal crashed into the snow with a bone-shaking impact that sent a plume of powder exploding outward. Trees shuddered. Jon was thrown forward, nearly snapping his neck, but he rolled and came up with his sword drawn. Then the whites hit. They poured onto the dragon like ants onto meat. Clawing, biting, climbing. Rhaegal roared, twisting, trying to burn them, but his wounded shoulder refused to lift properly. His head lashed. Fire spluttered in bursts. Jon hacked at whites climbing onto the dragon's neck. Daenerys landed Drogon beside them, and Drogon unleashed a wall of fire that incinerated the nearest swarm, melting snow into steaming mud. But more came. Always more. Goku landed hard, feet carving into snow. And for the first time since arriving in Westeros, he stopped holding back. Not fully, but enough that the air around him shook. He swept his arm in a wide arc, and a shockwave blasted the whites off the dragon's body like leaves blown from a tree. Bones snapped midair. Dead bodies scattered across the snow. Goku jumped, hovering above Rhaegal, and pressed both palms down without touching. Heat pulsed outward, controlled, purposeful. Not flame, not a blast, a warmth barrier. The whites near Rhaegal's wounded shoulder recoiled, their dead flesh sizzling. As if the warmth itself was poison to them. Jon stared up at him, breath heaving. Goku's face was clenched with effort. Because the cold fought back. The storm resumed, sudden and vicious, snow thickening into a white wall. Trying to smother Goku's heat-like hands pressing on a throat. Daenerys shouted, "Get him up." Jon roared at the dragon in a language older than any human tongue, voice shaking with fear and command. "Fly." Rhaegal tried. He surged, wings beating. He lifted a few feet. Then a white jammed a spear of ice into the wound. Rhaegal screamed. And fell again. Daenerys's eyes were wild now. No. Goku's gaze snapped toward the ridge. The White Walker was still there. Watching. Not rushing. Because it didn't need to. Then another figure appeared beside it. Then another. A line of cold silhouettes on the ridge, like winter's generals. And behind them, a larger shape. A rider. Still as a statue. Even through the storm, Goku could feel the intent rolling off that presence like frost. The Night King. He raised his hand slowly. The dead around them froze for half a breath. Then they threw themselves at Rhaegal again, all at once, like a single wave. Goku gritted his teeth. He couldn't kill them permanently with energy alone. He couldn't stop the numbers. And now he understood the real horror. This wasn't about beating an enemy. This was about preventing the enemy from taking your best weapon and turning it against you. "Daenerys!" Jon shouted, voice cracking. "We have to go." Daenerys looked at Rhaegal, at her child bleeding in the snow, and something in her broke open. Raw and furious, she refused. Then the Night King moved. He lifted his arm, and hurled an ice spear, not at a dragon this time. At Daenerys. Goku moved instantly. He flashed between them, caught the spear again. Cold surged into him, biting deeper, freezing his forearm to the elbow. He snarled, an ugly sound Jon had never heard from him, and shattered tea. He spear with a burst of heat that exploded outward. The ice shattered like glass. But the cost was immediate. Goku staggered. His aura flickered, unstable. Daenerys stared at him, shocked, furious, terrified. Jon grabbed her arm. Now! Drogon roared as Daenerys climbed back onto his back. Jon scrambled onto Rhaegal again, blood on his gloves, hands shaking. Goku forced his numb arm to move, throwing his other hand out. Releasing a wide blast of light that scorched the snow and knocked whites back in a burning arc. "Go!" he shouted. Drogon launched. Rhaegal tried. And finally, with a scream of pain, he lifted. Not cleanly. Not gracefully. But enough. They rose through the storm, leaving the ridge behind, leaving the dead below. Leaving whites clinging to Rhaegal's scales. Like parasites until Drogon's flame peeled them away midair. They flew south, wounded and shaken. And Goku flew beside them, his arms still rimmed with frost that refused to melt, eyes narrowed with a new kind of anger. Not rage. Resolve. Because he had seen the Night King's move. And he had understood the message. You have dragons. I can take them. You have warmth. I can freeze it. When they reached Winterfell, men rushed out. Shouting, carrying torches, hauling ladders. Rhaegal landed hard, stumbling, almost collapsing. Blood stained the snow black. Daenerys slid down from Drogon, face pale with fury. Jon jumped down, breathing hard, eyes full of the same truth Goku now carried. Sansa arrived with Arya and the others, staring at the wounded dragon, at the frost creeping along Goku's arm. Sansa's voice was tight. "What happened?" Jon answered grimly. "They can hurt dragons." Bran's voice came softly behind them. "They can take dragons." Daenerys whipped around. "No." Bran didn't blink. Yes. Goku flexed his frozen hand slowly. The frost cracked and fell away, but the numbness remained, a reminder. He looked at Daenerys. We can't let him get close again, Goku said quietly. Daenerys's eyes were glassy with anger. Then we meet him first. Jon's voice was harsh. And if he takes one? Daenerys didn't answer. No one did. Because everyone understood what that would mean. A dragon, made of fire and sky, reborn as winter. A weapon that could burn walls. A nightmare that could end everything. And somewhere beyond the storm, the Night King was patient. Because he didn't need to win tomorrow. He only needed to win once. Winterfell stopped pretending it could be ready. Readiness was a story people told themselves so they could sleep. The truth was simpler, the storm was coming. The dead were coming with it, and every warm breath inside the walls was a candle waiting to be tested. Rhaegal lay in the yard like a wounded god, chest rising and falling in slow, angry heaves. The gash in his shoulder had been packed with heat and poultices and prayers, none of which meant much to a creature made of sky. Men moved around him carefully, like mice. Around a lion that might decide pain was an insult worth killing for. Drogon paced the outer fields, restless, smoke curling from his nostrils even when he wasn't commanded. And Goku. Goku stood alone at the edge of the battlements at sunset, staring into the white distance. He felt the cold differently now. Not as discomfort, as pressure. Like the world's hand was closing around his throat a little more each hour. Jon approached quietly, boots crunching snow. You're thinking, Jon said. Goku didn't look away. Yeah, you're worried, Jon said. Goku exhaled. Yeah. Jon leaned on the stone beside him. About the Night King. Goku's jaw tightened. About all of it. He finally turned his head. His eyes were still bright, still human, still kind, but there was a new edge behind them. A seriousness like iron being heated. I can fight, Goku said. I can break their army apart, even here. Jon waited. But I can't be everywhere, Goku continued. And every time I use too much energy, this place pushes back. He flexed his fingers slowly, remembering that spear's cold crawling up his arm. It's like the winter is alive. Jon stared ahead. It is. Goku's lips pressed together. Then we need a plan that doesn't rely on me doing everything. Jon's mouth twitched, grim. Welcome to command. The War Council. Not a victory, an opening. The Great Hall of Wind. Our fell was packed so tight with bodies and firelight that the air felt heavy. Torches hissed. Candle smoke coiled like ghosts around the rafters. They argued. They always argued. Northern lords demanded the safest plan, which usually meant doing nothing until it was too late. Daenerys demanded aggression, because fire was what she trusted and fear was what she'd learned to answer with. Tyrion insisted on logic and got rewarded with glares. Sansa kept dragging them back to reality. Food, walls, wounded men, and the simple math of survival. And Bran sat quietly, watching them like someone watching a river argue with the ocean. Goku stayed near the back at first, listening. He wasn't used to war councils. In his world, people trained, fought, and then ate together afterward. Here, PLE fought before the fighting even started. Finally, Jon slammed his palm onto the table hard enough to make cups jump. The Night King wants Bran, he said. He comes for him. We can use that. Silence fell, tight and brittle. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. As bait. Bran's voice was calm. I'm not bait. I'm a target. Arya stood in the corner with her arms crossed, gaze sharp, saying nothing. But the dagger at her hip might as well have been speaking for her. Tyrion cleared his throat carefully. If we're building a trap, we need to be sure our trap doesn't become our grave. Goku stepped forward then, and everyone looked at him like a storm had decided to speak. I can help make the opening, Goku said. Sansa's eyes narrowed. Opening for what? Goku looked at Bran. For the kill. Jon's jaw tightened. Dragon glass or Valyrian steel? Goku nodded. Those are the rules. Fine. Daenerys leaned forward slightly. And you? Goku met her gaze. I'm the shield. A few men scoffed, quietly. Nervously, until they remembered what he could do. Goku continued, voice steady. You can't win this by killing every white. You win by killing the one controlling them. So we don't try to win the whole battle. He pointed at the map. We try to survive it long enough to force him into the moment where he thinks he's safe. Jon's eyes sharpened. And when he thinks he's safe. Goku's face hardened. That's when he loses. Sansa studied him for a long moment. And what does surviving look like? Goku glanced at Jon, then at Sansa. It looks like layers, he said. Not one line, not one hero. Layers. He began outlining it with his finger on the table like he was tracing a fighting stance. Outer kill zone, trenches, fire, spikes, anything that slows the swarm. Inner fallbacks. If the first ring breaks, you don't collapse, you retreat into the next ring. A moving shield. Him. Not everywhere. Where it breaks. The dead move like water, Goku said. So we make walls they have to smash themselves against. Tyrion blinked. You're describing siege warfare. Goku smiled faintly. Yeah, except the siege is alive. Daenerys's voice was sharp. What about the dragons? Goku's smile vanished. They're risky. Daenerys's eyes flared. They're essential. Goku didn't argue with the importance, he argued with the vulnerability. If he can freeze my arm with a spear, Goku said. He can do worse to them. Jon's face tightened. Rhaegal stays back. Daenerys's jaw clenched like it hurt to agree. Drogon stays high. Bran spoke quietly. He will come through the storm. Goku nodded slowly. Then we don't let the storm separate us. Arya finally spoke, voice small but sharp as a knife. And the moment he comes for Bran, I'm there. Jon looked at her. Arya. She didn't blink. You wanted an opening. I'm the opening. Goku watched her for a long second, then said softly, good. Arya's eyes flicked to him. Teach me one more thing. Goku nodded once. After this meeting, the last lesson, they met outside by the heart tree, where the wind was quieter and the cold felt older. Arya stood with her dagger in hand. Her shoulders were relaxed, but her eyes were bright with that hunger for survival that made her dangerous. Goku held out his palms. You can't do big stuff, he said. Not in days. Maybe not ever. That's fine. Arya didn't complain. Then give me something useful. Goku's expression softened. Okay. He placed his hand gently over hers, not touching skin, just close enough that the air between them warmed. Feel that? He asked. Arya swallowed. Yes. That's your life, Goku said. Not your anger. Not your fear. Your life. Arya's jaw tightened. And the dead. They're empty, Goku said. So warmth hurts them. Not fire like Drogon. Just being alive on purpose. Arya stared at her hands like they were unfamiliar. Goku stepped back. Now, breathe. Slow. Let it fill your arms. Don't force it. Arya inhaled. Exhaled. Her fingers trembled. A faint shimmer rose above her palms, barely there, like the beginning of heat over summer stone. Goku smiled. There. Arya's eyes widened. That's it. That's enough. Goku said. She clenched her fist around the dagger. The metal didn't steam. It didn't glow. But for a moment, Jon, watching from a distance, swore the blade looked less cold. Arya looked up at Goku. Will it matter? Goku's smile faded into something fierce and honest. Everything matters when you're fighting the end. The night arrives. The day of the battle, the sky never brightened. It was gray from horizon to horizon, like the world had decided color was a luxury it could no longer afford. They built trenches in rings. They packed oil and kindling. They placed dragonglass-tipped stakes in frozen ground. Archers lined walls with trembling hands and stubborn pride. Men drank, prayed, laughed too loudly, or said nothing at all. Goku walked the lines. He didn't give speeches. He didn't promise victory. He did something stranger, something Westeros wasn't used to. He told them the truth without cruelty. You're scared, he said to a young archer whose hands shook too much to knock an arrow. That's normal. The archer stared at him like he expected punishment. Goku crouched beside him. When the fear hits, don't fight the fear. Breathe and move anyway. The boy swallowed. Will you be there? Goku looked at the wall line, the trenches, the men packed like a thin skin over a dying world. He nodded slowly. I'll be where it breaks. And then he stood and walked on. Jon found him near the outer trench before dusk. You don't look tired, Jon said. Goku stared into the distance. I am. Jon frowned. You're hiding it. Goku shrugged. I don't want them to see. Jon's jaw tightened. You can't carry everyone. Goku's voice went quiet. I know. Then the horn sounded. One long blast. Then another. Then a third. The kind of sound that didn't mean, enemy spotted. It meant, the world is ending. The wind changed. The air grew so cold it felt like it could snap bone. And out in the white distance, the darkness began to move. At first it looked like shadow. Then it looked like smoke. Then it became shapes, thousands of shapes, pouring over the snow like a living tide. Whites. An ocean of dead bodies moving too fast, too silent, too hungry. The living line tensed. Men tightened grips until knuckles whitened. Some began to shake. Goku stepped forward, past the first trench, standing in the open, alone, facing the tide. John shouted, "Goku!" Goku didn't look back. He lifted one hand slightly, palm outward. Not as a threat, as a signal. Hold. The dead came closer. 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 Then they slammed into the outer kill zone. Fire trenches ignited, roaring to life, a wall of orange against white. Whites fell into flame, burning, collapsing. For a moment, the living cheered. For a moment, it felt like it worked. Then the dead did what dead things did best. They didn't stop. They threw themselves into the fire until the fire began to choke on bodies. Burning corpses piled up, creating bridges of flesh and bone over the trenches. And the tide kept coming. Goku's jaw tightened. Okay, he murmured. He launched. He blurred forward, moving like a strike of lightning, smashing the front ranks apart with controlled shockwaves that sent whites flying backward into the flames. He didn't waste energy on spectacle. He used it like a tool. Push, shove, scatter, burn. Above him, Drogon roared and rained fire in sweeping arcs, turning clusters of whites into ash. Arrows flew from the walls, dragging whites down. Dragonglass blades stabbed, crunched, shattered frozen skulls. But it wasn't enough. Because numbers were the Night King's favorite weapon. The dead poured in. They climbed walls. They climbed each other. They climbed over fire and fear and steel. And then the storm truly arrived. A whiteout slammed into Winterfell like a curtain dropping. Visibility vanished. Torches sputtered. Men screamed because they couldn't see what they were stabbing. Goku felt his breath hitch. Not from fear. From the pressure. The same pressure he'd felt beyond the wall, only stronger now. His ki didn't vanish, but it thickened, sluggish, like moving through cold mud. He clenched his fists. Here, he whispered, we go. He shot upward into the storm, just above the battlefield, trying to see, trying to find where the break would happen first. Below, he heard it. The sound of the living line bending. The sound of men starting to run. And then, through the storm, beyond sight, Goku felt something. Not ki. Not life. A presence. Cold certainty. The battlefield changed shape around that presence like iron filings around a magnet. Goku turned his head slowly. And in the storm's heart, a silhouette appeared, walking calmly through chaos as if chaos made room for it. Tall, still, unhurried. The Night King had arrived. Goku's eyes narrowed. His aura flickered, brighter for a second, then fought to stay lit beneath the crushing cold. Okay, he said softly. Voice steady despite everything. Now it's you. The storm didn't swirl randomly anymore. It moved with purpose. Snow and wind tightened into spirals, dragging visibility down to nothing. Turning Winterfell into a maze of screams and shadows. Torches became weak orange bruises in the whiteout. Men vanished 3 steps away, swallowed by cold. And through the center of it all, a silhouette walked calmly. No hurry. No strain. The Night King didn't need to run. The world was already moving for him. Goku hovered just above the chaos, eyes narrowed, breath controlled. He could hear the battle below, steel scraping bone, men shouting orders that the wind chewed apart, the wet thud of bodies falling into snow. But his focus locked onto the presence in the storm. Not ki. Not life. Something colder than both. Like a decision that had been made 1,000 years ago and never questioned since. Goku dropped, landing in the snow ahead of the silhouette with a soft crunch. For a heartbeat, the storm thinned, just enough. The Night King stood 10 paces away, blue eyes glowing faintly through the haze. No fear, no anger, just, endless. Goku straightened, fists loose at his sides. Hey, he called, voice calm but loud enough to cut through the wind. You're the one doing this. The Night King didn't answer. Of course he didn't. Goku took a slow step forward. I don't know what you are, he said, but I'm not letting you hurt anyone else. The Night King tilted his head slightly, as if listening to a language he didn't care to learn. Then he lifted one hand. The snow around them froze in midair. Not falling, not drifting, suspended, like the world was holding its breath. And the cold hit. Not a gust, not air, A pressure that slammed into Goku's chest like an invisible wall. His lungs tightened. His skin prickled. His ki, normally a flowing river he could call on without thinking, thickened, sluggish, like honey turning to stone. Goku's eyes widened a fraction. That's not normal. The Night King took one step forward. Snow resumed falling. And behind him, dead shapes began to rise. Whites. Dozens, pulling themselves out of drifts like rot slick hands climbing out of a grave. Goku's jaw tightened. Yeah, he muttered. Okay. That's your thing. He blurred forward. Not full speed, he couldn't risk shattering ground and flinging snow walls into his own people, but fast enough that the first whites barely registered before he was already past them. His fist snapped out. One white's skull collapsed like wet clay. His elbow drove into another's spine. A palm strike blew a third backward into a cluster, knocking 5 down like pins. He fought clean, efficient, controlled. Then he reached the Night King. Goku's fist came in, a straight punch aimed for the Night King's chest. The Night King raised his arm. Ice formed instantly along his forearm like a shield grown from nothing. Goku's punch hit. The impact cracked the ice, and a shock of cold surged into his knuckles like needles driven into bone. Goku hissed and pulled back. Not from pain alone, from the realization. The cold wasn't just temperature. It was magic designed to punish contact. The Night King moved. Faster than a man should. Not as fast as Goku, nothing here was as fast as Goku, but fast enough to surprise him. A blad. E of ice flashed from the Night King's other hand, forming mid-swing, slicing toward Goku's throat. Goku leaned back, letting the blade pass a hair's breadth away, then stepped in close. Close combat. If the cold punished energy blasts and ranged attacks, then Goku would fight like he always could. Body. Timing. Pressure. He snapped a kick toward the Night King's ribs. The Night King pivoted, catching it on an ice-grown shin guard. The collision sent cold up Goku's leg. His muscles tightened involuntarily, like winter trying to lock his joints. Goku grimaced. The Night King's eyes didn't change. He struck, an open-handed thrust that looked almost gentle. It wasn't gentle. It hit like a hammer wrapped in frost. Goku slid backward through snow, boots carving 2 long trenches, stopping only when his heel hit stone. He exhaled sharply. He's not stronger than me. But the way he fought wasn't about strength. It was about turning every exchange into a draining contest. Turning in Goku's greatest advantage, endurance, into something that bled away in the cold. Goku raised his hands again, stance lowering. All right, he said quietly, voice turning serious. Then I'll stop messing around. He drew a deep breath. The air trembled. Light flickered around him, not bright yet, not explosive, just present, like a flame deciding whether it would become a bonfire. The Night King lifted his hand again. The storm intensified. Wind slammed sideways. Snow thickened into a white wall. Goku clenched his teeth. If I fight him here, in this storm, I lose by exhaustion. He needed to change the battlefield. He needed to pull the Night King where the plan wanted him. Where Bran waited. Where the kill could happen. Goku flashed upward, hovering just above the Night King's reach. Then shot laterally through the blizzard, forcing the Night King to follow by being the only warm, bright thing in the storm. It worked. The Night King's head turned slowly, tracking him. Then he moved. Not running. Not chasing. Walking, because the dead did the running. Whites surged after Goku in a wave, climbing, leaping, clawing at him whenever he dipped low enough. Goku swatted them aside without looking. But every second was cost. Below, John was fighting near a collapsed trench line, shouting orders to keep men from breaking. He saw Goku streak overhead like a comet and for a heartbeat felt hope rise. Then he saw what followed. The Night King was moving toward the castle. Toward the Godswood. John's stomach dropped. Defend the Godswood. He roared, voice cracking. Protect Bran. Men tried to respond. The storm swallowed half the command. The other half arrived too late. A flame under snow. Goku dropped onto a section of courtyard wall, eyes searching through the whiteout. He could feel it, the way the battlefield bent around the Night King like iron around a magnet. Every white nearby changed direction to converge on the same path. A funnel. A spear point. Straight toward Bran. Goku's breath came out harsh. Okay, he murmured. So that's the game. He closed his eyes for a split second and called inward, not for rage, not for anger, not for vengeance. For heat. For life. For the part of him that refused to go out. When he opened his eyes again, his aura flared. Gold. Bright and sudden enough to turn the storm around him into glittering dust. His hair lifted, shifting to a sharp, golden blaze. His eyes turned green-blue, fierce and focused. The courtyard lit up like dawn had punched through night. Men below looked up and froze, mouths open. Even the whites hesitated, dead instincts recoiling from sudden warmth. Jon stared for one stunned heartbeat. What in the... Tormund, half buried in snow and blood, barked a mad laugh. He's turned into the sun. The Night King stopped, not because he was afraid. Because he had to measure. Goku felt the storm resist him immediately, wind slamming harder, cold pressing deeper. As if the world itself was furious that something bright had dared to exist in it. His Super Saiyan power surged, and the North tried to smother it. But now, Goku had leverage. Now he was strong enough to force the moment. He flashed forward. This time, when his fist met the Night King's ice guard, the ice didn't just crack. It shattered. A burst of frozen shards exploded outward. The Night King slid back a step. A single step. But it was the first time he'd yielded. Goku didn't give him time to reset. He moved like a storm of strikes, short, brutal, efficient. A straight punch to the ribs. A knee toward the center line. A hook aimed for the jaw. A palm strike meant to knock the Night King off balance rather than break him. The Night King blocked most of it, ice forming instantly where needed, armor blooming like frost flower shields. But each block cost him time. And Goku used that time like a weapon. He grabbed the Night King's wrist. Cold screamed up Goku's forearm. His teeth clenched. Frost tried to crawl over golden light. Goku growled, not in pain, but in refusal, and shoved his aura outward, burning the frost off his skin. Steam burst into the air. For the first time, the Night King's eyes narrowed. Not emotion. Evaluation. Goku yanked the Night King forward and slammed him shoulder first into a stone pillar. The pillar cracked. The Night King didn't bleed. But the impact forced him to pause, just a fraction. Goku leaned in, voice low, harsh. You can't put out a fire by staring at it. The Night King's hand rose. Ice exploded outward from his palm, an expanding wave of white that tried to encase Goku's torso and arms in a frozen coffin. Goku flared his aura and blasted the ice off in an instant. But it cost him. He felt it immediately, his power burning faster than it should, his Super Saiyan flame being forced to consume itself just to stay alive. The Night King didn't need to beat him in one strike. He only needed time. Goku's eyes flicked toward the godswood. We're close. He slammed his palm into the ground and released a shockwave that blasted White's back in a wide ring, clearing space. Then he shot toward the godswood gate like a streak of gold. The Night King followed. And the dead followed the Night King. A river of death pouring through Winterfell's ruins. The godswood was quieter. Not peaceful, never that. But the trees swallowed sound, and the heart tree stood at the center like a witness that had seen too much to feel surprise. Bran sat beneath it, still as stone. Theon Greyjoy stood in front of him with a spear in his hands, knuckles white, breath shaking. A handful of Ironborn and Northern men formed a thin line around them, eyes wide with the knowledge that they were about to be crushed. Arya was there too, not in the line, in the shadows, silent, unseen, breathing the way Goku had taught her. Slow in, slower out, hands warm, blade steady. She watched the snow between trees and waited for the moment that mattered. The first whites crashed into the godswood like a flood. Theon's men screamed and fought. Dragonglass daggers flashed. Whites fell and rose and fell again. Then Goku dropped into the center of the godswood like a falling star, golden light flickering across red leaves and white snow. He looked at Bran, just once. Bran's eyes met his. No fear, just certainty. He's here, Bran said softly. Goku nodded. I know. The storm at the edge of the godswood thickened. A silhouette emerged between trees. The Night King walked into the godswood as if it belonged to him. And the dead around him parted. Goku stepped forward, planting himself between the Night King and Bran. His aura flared brighter. Snow melted near his feet. Steam rose in thin ghost lines. The Night King stopped 5 paces away. His gaze drifted past Goku, locking on Bran. As if Goku was not the goal. Only the obstacle. Goku's chest rose and fell. He could feel his energy draining faster here, as if the Night King's presence was a vacuum sucking warmth out of the air. But he didn't step back. Not happening, he said. The Night King lifted his hand. And every white corpse in the godswood, every broken limb, every shattered skull, twitched. Then rose. All at once. A second wave. A new wall. Theon's line buckled immediately under the weight. Men screamed. Arya's eyes widened. Not with fear. With urgency. Goku's jaw clenched. He couldn't blast everything. Not here. Not with Bran behind him. Not with allies in the crush. So he did the only thing he could do. He became the wall. He spun, releasing tight, controlled shockwaves with each strike, knocking whites off their feet, breaking THM without flattening the godswood itself. He kept moving, kept burning, kept holding, and in those seconds, the Night King did what he always did. He walked, calmly, through chaos, toward Bran. Goku saw it and surged forward, cutting through whites like wind through smoke. He reached the Night King. And for the first time, he didn't strike. He grabbed him, both hands on the Night King's shoulders. Cold detonated up his arms, into his chest, into his throat. His Super Saiyan aura flared violently, fighting the freeze. Steam exploded outward. Goku's teeth bared. The Night King's eyes locked on his, unblinking. A silent message passed between them. You burn. I end burning. Goku forced his feet forward, shoving the Night King back one step. Then another. Trying to keep him away from Bran. Trying to hold him in place long enough for the kill to happen. But the cold was winning inches inside his bones. His aura flickered. His breath hitched. His muscles trembled. He could feel frost starting to crawl over his forearms again. Goku snarled and forced warmth outward, refusing to let his arms lock. He turned his head slightly, voice strained but controlled. Now, he shouted, without looking. Trusting the plan, trusting the shadows. Arya moved. Silent as breath. Warm hands. Steady blade. She launched from the darkness. And the Night King's head turned, just slightly. As if he felt the change in the air. His free hand lifted. Ice formed. Fast. Too fast. Goku saw the movement and realized, in a flash of horror. If the Night King blocked Arya, if he caught her, it wouldn't just be her life. It would be hope dying in front of everyone. Goku surged, forcing the Night King's arm down with everything he had left. His aura flared, then flickered, then flared again, unstable. Burning itself to stay alive. Arya's blade flashed toward the Night King's heart. And the storm screamed. Time didn't slow. It tightened. The godswood became a single breath held between life and death. Snow hung in the air in swirling bands, catching Goku's golden aura and turning it into glittering sparks. The heart tree loomed like a witness that had endings before and would see them again. Arya flew through the shadows, dagger in hand, body compact and perfect, no wasted motion, no noise, just intent sharpened into a blade. The Night King's hand rose. Ice formed instantly, curling up his forearm like a second skin, blooming into a shield meant to catch and crush. He moved to intercept her. And Goku, already shaking with cold, frost crawling over his wrists, forced himself forward with a sound that was half growl, half prayer. He didn't punch. He didn't blast. He locked the Night King's arm. Both hands clamped down, aura flaring violently. Steam bursting from the contact point as heat fought winter. Goku's teeth clenched so hard his jaw ached. The cold surged into him like a flood. His golden aura sputtered at the edges, fighting to stay bright. He felt his muscles trying to seize, trying to turn his arms into ice. He refused. Not today, he snarled, voice rough. The Night King's blue eyes turned to Goku for the first time like he truly noticed him. No anger, no surprise, just cold calculation. Then the Night King did something new. He didn't fight Goku's strength head-on. He let the cold spread. A pulse of winter rolled outward from him, trying to swallow Goku's aura like a wave swallowing a candle. Goku's light dimmed for half a heartbeat. His breath hitched, and in that half heartbeat, Arya's dagger was inches away. Jon had once told Arya, stick them with the pointy end. Goku had told her something different. Be alive on purpose. Arya's breath was slow. Her hands were warm. And the dagger, dark, dragonglass, looked like it drank the torchlight. She struck. The Night King twisted. Not fast enough to escape. Fast enough that the dagger didn't hit his heart. It hit his ribs. For a heartbeat, Arya's eyes widened. For a heartbeat, everyone watching, the few who still stood, felt the world start to tip into despair. Because if the strike missed, if the kill failed, there was no second chance. The Night King's hand snapped toward Arya's throat. Ice crawled toward his fingertips. Goku roared, pure sound, pure refusal, and shoved all his remaining heat outward in a brutal flare. His aura exploded, blinding gold filling the godswood like a small sun. The frost on his arms cracked and shattered. Steam erupted. The Night King's hand jerked off course. And Arya, fast as thought, twisted her wrist, shifting the blade, driving it in a fraction deeper. The dragonglass found what it needed. Not muscle, not bone, something inside the Night King that felt wrong, like a knot in reality. The dagger sank. The Night King froze. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with the sudden, alien sensation of failure. A thin crack spidered across his skin, spreading from the wound like glass breaking under pressure. The storm screamed. Not wind, not weather. A sound like a giant sheet of ice splitting in the dark. The Night King's body began to fracture. Cracks raced along his arms, across his chest, up his throat. He looked at Arya, then at Bran, then back at Goku. As if trying to understand how something inevitable had been interrupted. Then his entire body shattered. He burst into 1,000 shards of ice and dust, exploding outward like a star collapsing. The cold pressure that had been crushing the godswood vanished instantly, like a hand releasing a throat. Goku staggered forward, nearly falling to his knees, gasping as warm air rushed back into his lungs. Arya stumbled backward, breathing hard, dagger still in hand, eyes wide. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then every white in the godswood stopped moving. All at once, like puppets whose strings had been cut. They collapsed into snow, bodies falling limp, heads rolling, arms dropping lifeless. Outside the godswood, the sound of battle shifted into confusion. Then into silence. Across Winterfell, whites collapsed by the thousands, piling into trenches, slumping off walls, drop. Ping from rooftops like rain made of corpses. Men stared at the sudden stillness like they didn't trust it. Some kept stabbing. Some fell to their knees. Some simply stood there, unable to understand. And what it meant for the world to stop ending. Then a shout rose, raw, disbelieving. He's dead. The Night King's dead. We're alive, we're alive. The shout spread like fire. Cheers erupted. Sobs. Laughter that sounded like madness. The living didn't celebrate neatly. They celebrated like people crawling out of a grave. The cost of brightness. In the godswood, the survivors gather. Ed around Bran like he was proof the plan had been real. Theon lay slumped in the snow, bleeding, eyes open, breathing shallow. His men were gone, dead or too broken to stand. Jon stumbled in through the trees. Face streaked with blood and snow, eyes wide. He saw Arya holding the dagger and froze. Then he rushed forward and grabbed her in a fierce, shaking embrace. You, he choked, voice breaking. You did it. Arya didn't smile. Not yet. Her hands were still trembling. I did what I was supposed to, she whispered. Jon pulled back and stared at her like she was impossible. Then his gaze snapped to Goku. Goku stood near the heart tree, shoulders heaving, arms still smoking faintly where frost had tried to claim them. His golden hair had faded back to black. His aura was gone. He looked tired in a way Jon had never seen before. Not physically exhausted. Something deeper. Like he had held winter in his hands and felt how eager it had been to swallow him. Jon stepped closer. You held him. Goku nodded. Swallowing. Yeah. Jon's voice went hoarse. You saved her. Goku looked at Arya. His expression softened. She saved everyone. Arya's eyes flicked to him. You made the opening. Goku shrugged weakly. Teamwork. The word sounded strange in the godswood, where so much of Westeros had died because people refused to act like a team. Bran watched them with quiet, distant eyes. The storm is gone, Bran said softly. Jon looked up. He could feel it too. The air was still cold, but it was normal cold now. Honest cold. Not a living thing that wanted to smother the world. The clouds didn't move with hunger anymore. The sky was just sky. Goku exhaled slowly, relief washing over him so hard his knees nearly buckled. He steadied himself against the heart tree, hands pressed to bark that looked like blood. He whispered, almost to himself, we did it. Aftermath. When the dead stop, humans start again. By dawn, Winterfell looked like a scar. Bodies filled trenches. Snow was stained dark. Walls were broken. Fires smoldered low, exhausted. The air smelled like ash, blood, and burned rot. But the dead weren't moving. The living walked through the ruins like people who didn't trust that the world still belonged to them. Daenerys stood in the courtyard, staring out over the fields. Drogon perched nearby, wings half furled, eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting the dead to rise again. Rhaegal limped, wounded but alive, breathing hard. His pain was real, but it was his now, not the Night King's tool. Tyrion arrived at the top of the broken steps, face pale. Eyes wide with the kind of relief that made a man dizzy. "It's over," he said, voice trembling. Sansa stood beside him, gaze fixed on the wreckage. "For now," she answered. Daenerys turned when Goku and Jon approached. She looked at Goku differently now. Not like a weapon. Not like a stranger. Like someone who had stood between the world and the end. "You helped win the Great War," Daenerys said. Goku rubbed the back of his head, embarrassed. "We all did." Daenerys's eyes narrowed. "Don't pretend your part was small." Goku's expression sobered. It wasn't small. He looked around at the bodies, at children carrying water, at men lifting wounded, at women staring at the sky like they didn't know what to do with daylight. Then he said quietly, "But it's not finished." Jon stared at him. "What?" Goku's eyes lifted toward the south. "People are still going to fight," he said. "I can feel it." Tyrion's mouth tightened. "Ah, yes." Daenerys's gaze sharpened. "Cersei." Sansa's voice was cold. "She didn't come. She didn't help. And she will still want the throne." The words settled like ash. The Great War was won. The human war remained. Goku exhaled slowly. In his world, you beat the big enemy, and people usually stopped. Here, victory only created new hunger. He looked at Jon. "So what happens now?" Jon's jaw clenched. "Now we deal with the living." Goku's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with that same quiet disappointment he'd felt on Dragonstone. "Okay," he said softly. "Then I'm still here." The first sunrise after the long night felt wrong. Not because it wasn't beautiful, because it was. Light spilled across Winterfell's broken walls, catching on shattered ice and scorched wood, turning blood-stained snow into something almost pink, almost gentle. For a moment, it looked like the world was trying to apologize. But the people walking through that sunrise didn't look forgiven. They looked hollowed out. Men carried bodies to pyres. Women sat in silence beside the dead. Children clung to whoever was left, eyes too old for their faces. Goku stood in the courtyard and watched it all. He'd seen worlds threatened. He'd watched cities burn. He'd lost friends. But this wasn't a single battle. It was a lifetime of brutality compressed into a place that still had to live afterward. Jon approached quietly, carrying a bundle of dragonglass weapons to be stored away, useless now, but too meaningful to throw out. Goku glanced at them. "Those won't be needed anymore." Jon's mouth tightened. "We don't throw away the things that saved us." Quote. Goku nodded slowly. "Yeah, that makes sense." They stood for a moment in the cold morning air, watching the living clean up what the dead had left behind. Hen Sansa's voice cut in from behind them. "We received ravens," she said. Jon turned. "From where?" Sansa's face was hard. "King's Landing. Cersei offers condolences." Tyrion, walking with her, barked a humorless laugh. "Condolences." As if she lost a favorite pet. Daenerys arrived a step later, cloak heavy, eyes sharp with a fury she'd kept tight during the war but could no longer hold in. "She did not come," Daenerys said. "She did not send men. She did not send food. She let us bleed." Sansa's voice stayed cold. "She expected you to die." Daenerys's lips pressed into a thin line. "And now she expects me to kneel." Tyrion exhaled. "She expects you to come south exhausted, wounded, and desperate, so she can pick your bones." Goku listened, eyebrows slowly knitting together. T was the same feeling he'd had on Dragonstone. The same wrongness. Not magic. Not winter. People. "So," Goku said carefully, "we're going to fight her." Jon didn't answer immediately. His eyes flicked across the courtyard, past the wounded, the grieving, the men who hadn't even finished burying their dead. Then he said, quietly, "War doesn't stop because we want it to." Goku stared at him, and something inside him sagged. In his world, you fought the big enemy and then, after, people had a chance to breathe. Here, the world didn't even give them time to mourn before asking them to kill again. Daenerys spoke, voice like a drawn blade. I will not allow her to rule after this. Sansa's gaze met hers. And I will not allow the North to be dragged into another southern war. The air tightened instantly. Old mistrust resurfaced like a wound reopened. Jon stepped between them, voice strained. Enough. But Tyrion could already see the lines forming. The Great War had united them. Victory was already splitting them apart. Goku watched it happen, and he didn't understand it. Or maybe he did, and that understanding made him angry in a way fighting never had. The Hards. Tea battle, containing fire without extinguishing it. Later that day, Goku found Daenerys alone near Drogon. The dragon stood on a hill outside Winterfell, wings folded, eyes scanning the horizon like he was still waiting for dead things to rise. Daenerys stood before him, one hand pressed to Drogon's warm scales, face turned into the wind. She didn't turn when Goku approached. You want something, she said. Goku stopped a respectful distance away. Yeah. Daenerys finally looked at him. If you're here to tell me to forgive Cersei, don't waste your breath. Goku shook his head. No. She sounds awful. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. Then what? Goku struggled, searching for words that could survive Westeros. In my world, he said slowly, there are bad people. There are also monsters. But when the monsters come, people usually remember they're on the same side. Daenerys's face didn't soften. Westeros is not your world. Goku exhaled. I know. He looked at Drogon. Your dragon, he's strong. But you don't control him by fear, right? Daenerys's eyes sharpened. No. You control him because he trusts you, Goku said. Daenerys's expression flickered, something protective, something fierce. Goku continued, voice steady. If you go south and burn everything to force peace, people will obey, until you're not there. And then it starts again. Daenerys's jaw tightened. You think I want to burn everything? Goku met her gaze, honest. I think you're angry enough too. Daenerys's eyes flashed. For a heartbeat, the air felt dangerous. Then Daenerys looked away, jaw working. And Goku realized he'd hit the truth too cleanly. She whispered, almost to herself, I lost so much. Goku nodded. I know. Daenerys's voice rose, hardening again. And they will take more if I let them. Goku's hands clenched. Then don't let them. But don't become the thing you're fighting. Daenerys stared at him for a long moment. Then she said quietly, you speak like someone who has never had to rule. Goku rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. Yeah, I don't like telling people what to do. Daenerys's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. That much is obvious. Goku looked back toward Winterfell. But I do like protecting people. Daenerys's gaze followed his. Protection is not always gentle. Goku nodded. No. Then he said something that made Daenerys's eyes narrow again. I'll go with you. Daenerys turned sharply. To King's Landing. Goku nodded. Yeah, not to fight your war for you. But to stop it from becoming another apocalypse. Daenerys studied him like she was weighing a blade. Finally, she said, if you go south, people will fear you. Goku shrugged. They already do. Daenerys's eyes sharpened. And some will try to use you. Goku's expression hardened. Then they'll learn they can't. Daenerys held his gaze. Then she said softly, very well. And in that moment, something in Westeros shifted again. Not because a dragon flew, not because a prophecy turned. But because a man who didn't understand crowns had decided not to let crowns ruin everything he'd saved. Southbound. The weight of a throne. The march south was tense. Not like war against the dead. This was human tension, silent, sharp, layered with grudges and doubts. Northern soldiers marched because Jon asked them to. They didn't march because they believed in Daenerys. Daenerys's men marched because Daenerys commanded them. They didn't march because they trusted the North. Goku marched because he chose to. And that difference unsettled everyone. On the road, Goku tried to help in small ways. He carried wagons through mud without complaint. He repaired broken wheels with a tap, then apologized when the wood splintered too much. He helped lift wounded soldiers onto horses. He smiled at children and made them laugh by balancing stones on his fingertips as if gravity was a game. But when lords saw him, they whispered. Weapon, demon, god, threat. And wherever that whisper went, fear followed. Tyrion walked beside Goku one evening as the campfires were lit. You're doing a strange thing, Tyrion said. Goku glanced at him. What? Tyrion gestured vaguely toward the camp. Being kind. It confuses them. Goku blinked. Why? Tyrion sighed. Because kindness from someone powerful is rare. They expect power to take. Goku's face tightened. That's stupid. Tyrion gave a small smile. Yes. And yet it's very real. Goku stared into the firelight. In my world, strong people protect. Tyrion's smile faded. In this world, strong people rule. Goku's jaw clenched. Maybe that's why this world keeps suffering. Tyrion studied him carefully. And what will you do about it? Goku looked up, eyes steady. I'll remind them, he said. That strength can mean something else. The choice at the gates. When King's Landing finally came into view, its walls high, its towers sharp, its gates guarded by men who looked like they'd never seen true winter. Goku felt something strange. Not cold, not magic, a heaviness. Like the city itself was built from fear layered on fear layered on fear. Daenerys's army halted outside the city. Tyrion moved forward with messengers. Cersei's banners hung on the battlements like a dare. The city didn't feel like it had survived an apocalypse. It felt like it had ignored it. Jon stood beside Daenerys, jaw tight. Sansa hadn't come. The North had stayed back, guarded by her stubborn will. Jon had gone anyway, because duty never stopped clawing at him. Daenerys Street. Ared at the gates like she could burn them with her eyes. Goku hovered just above the ground beside her, not flying high, not making a show, just ready. A trumpet sounded. The gates opened a crack. A delegation emerged, gold cloaks. Lannister soldiers, and at their center, a smug-faced man reading terms from a scroll like the dead had never existed. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. Jon's hand tightened on his sword. Tyrion's face went carefully blank. And Goku. Goku stepped forward. Not aggressively. Not threateningly. Just forward enough that everyone saw him. The messenger's voice faltered. He stared at Goku like he was staring at a myth made flesh. You, the messenger stammered. You are, the Sky Man. Goku tilted his head. Yeah, the messenger swallowed. Her Grace offers surrender terms. Goku cut him off gently. No. Silence. The messenger blinked. No. Goku nodded, calm. No more games. No more people dying for pride. You saw what almost happened to the world. If your queen wants to keep playing, she can play with me. The messenger's face went white. Daenerys stared at Goku, shocked. Jon stared at him too, like he couldn't decide if this was genius or madness. Tyrion muttered under his breath, oh no. Goku continued, voice still calm, still kind, but with steel beneath it. Tell Cersei this, if she wants a fight, she doesn't get to hide behind civilians. She comes out and faces the truth. Or she steps down. The messenger's lips trembled. She will never. Goku's eyes narrowed slightly. Then I'll go in. Tyrion's voice rose sharply. Goku, absolutely not. Goku glanced at him. Relax. I'm not gonna destroy the city. Tyrion looked like he was about to faint. That is not reassuring. Daenerys stepped forward, voice dangerous. You will not walk into my enemy's city alone. Quote. Goku met her gaze. Then don't make it alone. He looked at Jon. Come with me, he said. You know the streets. You know what this place does to people. Jon's jaw tightened. Then he nodded once. Tyrion looked like he wanted to argue with the universe. But he followed too, because Tyrion couldn't stop himself from trying to steer disasters away from cliffs. They walked through the gates. And the city watched. People pressed to windows. Guards sweated behind spears. Whispers spread faster than ravens. Some called him savior. Some called him devil. Most simply stared. They reached the steps of the Red Keep. And there, at the top, stood Cersei's court, cold eyes, golden armor, pride stacked like bricks. Cersei herself watched from above like a queen watching ants. She smiled. Not because she was happy. Because she believed she still controlled the board. Goku looked up at her. He didn't smile. He didn't glare. He simply spoke, voice carrying through the courtyard like a bell. It's over, he said. Step down. Cersei's smile widened. Or what? Goku exhaled slowly. Then he said the most terrifying thing a ruler like Cersei could hear. Or I'll protect everyone from you. And in that moment, the true battle began. Not fists against ice. Not fire against death. But the hardest fight of all. A world learning whether it could survive its own cruelty. Epilogue. the legend the North tells. Some stories end with a throne. This one ended with a choice. Not Cersei's. Not Daenerys's. Not Jon's. Westeros's. Because Goku didn't win by killing a queen. He won by making it impossible for her to keep the same game. A man who could crush castles chose instead to stand between power and the helpless. And when the dust settled, however it settled, Westeros remembered one thing clearly. That the brightest strength was the kind that refused to take. Years later, in northern villages rebuilt from ash, children would tell the tale. A golden-haired warrior fell from the sky when winter tried to kill the world. He fought the darkness. He didn't claim a crown. He didn't demand worship. He simply saved people, and reminded them they could save each other too.